Chapter 2443. The Black Bear's spirit knew that Su Shi and Pei Jiren were not ordinary people. If he barged in and killed them, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. Perhaps the mysterious person who had asked him to provoke them would not let him go. Although he had only interacted with the mysterious person a few times, he had already felt that the mysterious person did not care about Su Shi's life, but he would not kill Su Shi with his own hands. Moreover, the mysterious person had vaguely warned him not to hurt Pei Jiren. If he acted rashly and killed them, it would definitely cause a lot of trouble. Even when he was secretly scheming, he had to be careful. After thinking for a few days, the Black Bear Spirit Bantel came up with what he thought was a brilliant idea. There was no grudge between him and Pei Jiren. If he really killed her, according to the mysterious man's methods, he would not be able to escape. Therefore, he chose to kill Su Shi. He did not directly kill him. He knew that Su Shi often went out and liked nothing more than to sightsee and admire flowers and write poems with his poetry friends. They would go to places with unique scenery all year round: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Although Pei Jiren went there occasionally, she went less since she had a pair of children. Why didn't he take advantage of this time to poison Su Shi? The poison in his hand could not be cured by people in the mortal world. If Su Shi was poisoned, he would definitely die. Bantai did not have to wait long for this day. Su Shi and his friends agreed to climb to the top of the mountain and wait for the next day's sunrise. Bantai, who knew about this, ordered 2 of his subordinates to pretend to be a family on the mountainside. When Su Shi asked for water to drink, he gave him some poison. This poison would not act up for the first 7 days. When it did, there was no cure. Sure enough, as Bantai expected, Su Shi was fine for the next 7 days. After 7 days, the poison acted up. That morning, Su Shi did not get up early to exercise, as usual. Pei Jiren thought that he was tired, so she let him rest for a while. However, when it was almost noon, Su Shi still hadn't woken up. Pei Jiren pulled open the curtains and saw that Su Shi's lips were black and his eyes were purple. His originally tanned skin was also a little green. In this way, how could she not know that Su Shi had been poisoned? She immediately called for an imperial physician to treat him. In the end, she was told that there was no way to reverse the situation and could only use some life-prolonging medicine to keep Su Shi alive. However, the life-prolonging medicine wouldn't be able to prolong Su Shi's life for long. This poison should be a slow-acting poison. At most, they could prolong Su Shi's life for 20 days. If Su Shi couldn't think of any other way after 20 days, there were only 4 options left. Pei Jiren cried as she tried to think of a solution. The emperor had no choice but to summon all the godly doctors in the world to treat Su Shi. However, no one could cure Su Shi's poison. Just when Pei Jiren was at her wit's end, she suddenly thought of Tanghua. "Princess, what's wrong?" The palace maid saw that Pei Jiren didn't speak and was in a daze. She almost missed her footing and hurriedly supported her. Pei Jiren's heart pounded. She wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and grabbed the palace maid's hand. "Accompany me to the nearest koi temple." The palace maid suddenly understood. Many people said that the koi god was very effective. Although this god was a little different from the other gods, everyone believed it. It could be seen that he was very capable. Now that the princess wanted to worship the koi god, maybe he could save the prince consort. Chapter 2444. Pei Jiren hurried to the nearest koi temple and chased the others out. She closed the door of the temple and stayed inside. She stared at the statue of Tanghua for a long time. Even if she was unwilling, she never thought that she would lower her head in front of her. However, if no one helped the prince consort detoxify this time, he would really lose his life. In front of her life, nothing else was important. Therefore, she immediately knelt down in front of the statue of Tanghua. "If you see it, please come out and see me. The prince consort is about to die." The statue did not respond. Pei Jiren bit her lips and kowtowed to the statue. "Great koi god, your daughter, Pei Jiren, requests to see you." If the other party still did not appear, Pei Jiren had no other choice. After waiting for a long time, when she was in despair, A ray of light suddenly appeared on the statue. She felt something and quickly raised her head. She saw a figure floating down from the statue. It was indeed Tangua. She was dressed in red and looked very beautiful. "You've finally come out to see me." The prince consort was poisoned. "I've investigated everything before and after. In the end, I determined that he was poisoned when he went up the mountain with someone a few days ago. Later, I sent people to investigate that place and found that there was no one at the place where the prince consort stayed. I suspect that the prince consort was harmed by a demon." Pei Jiren went one step further with her guess. "I even suspect that the person who harmed the prince consort was Ban Tai, the black bear's spirit. If Su Shi had offended a demon, it would be Tangua. However, Tangua could have killed the prince consort several times, but she did not do it. She should still have the prince consort in her heart and would not use such a method to harm the prince consort. It was also because of this that she decided to look for Tangua. The second was the black bear's spirit Ban Tai. Do you have a way to save the prince consort?" Pei Jiren cleared her mind and looked at Tangua with desire. "As long as you can save the prince consort, I'll give you anything you want." "I can't help you." The shadow finally spoke. When Pei Jiren was about to ask why, she interrupted her. "I'm just a consciousness of the main body, so I can't help you." "What do you mean?" Pei Jiren widened her eyes. "A consciousness?" "I'm just a consciousness of the main body in the temple. Ever since I existed, the main body has never come to the temple. If you came earlier, I might have been able to help you contact the main body. Now that the main body's opportunity has arrived, she has blocked all contact with her consciousness. I can't find her. As for me, I am only a wisp of consciousness. From what you said, Sushi should have been poisoned by demonic poison. This kind of poison is very troublesome even for the main body to remove. As for me, a tiny wisp of consciousness is simply unable to cure it." Pei Jiren didn't believe it, but this shadow was indeed a bit different from Tangua. She didn't give up and went to other temples. She found that there was a consciousness of the same kind in all the temples she went to. It looked like Tangua, but it wasn't Tangua. After careful observation, there was still a big difference. Their answers were the same. They didn't have enough power to save Su Shi and couldn't contact the main body of Tangua. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't deal with Tangua, Pei Jiren would have ordered people to tear down the temple. Since they couldn't save Su Shi, what was the point of keeping the temple? Pei Jiren was angry, but she still suppressed it in the end. At the same time, she sent people everywhere to find out about Tangua's whereabouts. Chapter 2445. As time passed day by day, she was in despair. Pass down the order. If the prince consort dies, go and tear down the Koi temple. Pei Jiren looked at the unconscious Su Shi and made a decision. If the prince consort died, then what was the point of keeping the Koi temple? The palace maids and eunuchs were terrified. That was the Koi god that everyone worshipped. If the princess ordered people to do such a thing, wouldn't it anger the people? What are you waiting for? Why aren't you following my orders? If the prince consort never wakes up, then bring people to tear down the temple. Pei Jiren guessed that those temples were definitely beneficial to Tangua. Since she wasn't willing to save the prince consort, then she would tear down the other party's temple. Anyway, these temples were built by her. If they were destroyed, then so be it. After all, the prince consort was gone. Yes, Your Highness. Tangua didn't know about these things. She didn't keep an eye on this place at all times. Even if she knew, she wouldn't care. The existence of the temple was indeed beneficial to her, but she didn't have to have it. If Pei Jiren really tore down the temple, she would be in trouble. Don't underestimate the people's faith. Now, who knew how many people believed in her, the Koi god? Even if there were no more temples, they would secretly build them. They would silently believe in her and make some statues of her to place in their homes. If Pei Jiren killed them all, it would only cause their dynasty to lose the people's hearts. That would be interesting. Time passed day by day. Su Shi's life force became weaker and weaker. Pei Jiren sat beside him and became more and more anxious. If she didn't send her children to the palace, She wouldn't know how to explain it to them. She hadn't slept for a few days. Suddenly, she dozed off and actually had a dream. A tall and sturdy figure appeared in front of her. It didn't look simple. She couldn't see the other person's face clearly, but her intuition told her that the person who appeared in her dream wasn't simple. Do you want to save Sushi? Pei Jiren knew that it was a dream. Her mind was very clear. In that situation, it was impossible for her to really fall asleep. How could she dream? Recently, she would wake up as soon as she closed her eyes. He is my son-in-law, my husband. Of course, I want to save him. All right, you didn't find the wrong person before. That carp spirit can indeed save Sushi, but she has a great opportunity now. You can't find her, and she's very far from the capital. Even if you find her, Sushi might die if you rush back. The person who appeared in Pei Jiren's dream was none other than Military Star. He felt that after being tormented for so long, he really couldn't bear it. Sushi was his son after all. Didn't he just like a woman? Even if this woman was an official of the 9 luminary stars whom he didn't like, it wasn't his fault. Because of this matter, his son had been tormented enough. That old bastard, the 9 brilliant star official, gave his son a beautiful carp demon and told the black bear demon to sow discord. Every time, it was his son who suffered. This made him a little unhappy. If the other party didn't want the 2 little ones to succeed, then he would let the 2 little ones pass through this tribulation. Thinking about how ugly that old bastard's face would be when the tribulation ended, he was very happy. And that carp demon was sent by the 9 brilliant star official to seduce his son. This time, Sushi was in danger. She should be the one to save him. Chapter 2446. The main reason was that he couldn't do it himself. If he tried to save Sushi, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the Celestial Emperor. The carp spirit was brought here by the 9 luminary star official. He was just borrowing her. What's the point of saying all this now? Pei Jiren's eyes dimmed. Even if this mysterious person was powerful, what was the point? From what she heard, he didn't intend to save her husband. I have a treasure here that allows you to travel across 5 states in the blink of an eye. I'll give you this treasure and the carp spirit's location. You can go and find her. The carp spirit is capable. When she finds out about Sushi, she'll come back with you. When Pei Jiren woke up, she quickly lifted her skirt and found that there were 2 pairs of wings on her embroidered shoes. She immediately believed in the dream. She explained everything in the princess residence and asked someone to watch over Sushi. Then, she followed the person in the dream to find Tangua. Sure enough, after activating the incantation, a protective barrier appeared around her body, and her figure immediately floated out like a flying arrow. Pei Jiren was relieved. She thought that she could save Sushi if she found Tangua. At this moment, Tangua and Qingheng were at the Dragon Gate. In midair, a golden door opened. On the door, there was a golden dragon engraved on it. Below the Dragon Gate was a river. Water flowed down from the Dragon Gate like a waterfall. Beside Tangua and Qingheng, there were countless fish and prawns in the water. Regardless of whether they were fish or prawns, they all wanted to try. After all, this was a once-in-a-century opportunity. No one wanted to miss it. The carp leaping over the Dragon Gate was an opportunity for water spirits to achieve Taoist body. It didn't mean that one would become a dragon after leaping over. The fish here represented water spirits. The dragon meant that one could leave the body of a spirit and didn't need to be tested by the heavenly tribulation. One could directly achieve Taoist body. In other words, as long as one could make the leap, it was equivalent to becoming an immortal. If one couldn't make the leap, one could only go back and cultivate. Only by going through the heavenly tribulation could one become an immortal. Otherwise, one would have to wait another 100 years. There were many water spirits here. They had made the leap several times but failed. The Dragon's Gate only opened once every 100 years. Those who could leap over could be counted on one's fingers. In fact, there might not even be a single person who could leap over from the moment the Dragon's Gate opened until it closed. The Dragon Gate was not controlled by the Heaven Realm, but an opportunity given by the Heavenly Tao. As long as one jumped through this door, regardless of status or identity, they would be higher in the heaven realm. Although the water rushing down from the Dragon Gate was like a waterfall, one could jump over it with some strength. In fact, when you transformed into your true form and jumped into the river, you could really feel the pressure from the Dragon Gate. If one wanted to go against the current and leap out of the Dragon's Gate, one would have to surpass oneself in order to have a chance of succeeding. When Tanghua and Qingheng arrived, the Dragon Gate had just opened. The Dragon's Gate would only open for 3 days. As long as he crossed it within these 3 days, he would have succeeded. Neither of them was in a hurry to jump. Instead, they looked at the little monsters that had jumped into the river. Before they could jump, they were knocked unconscious by the river water. Tanghua also saw a tortoise. It had already transformed into its original form and was rolling around in the river after being hit by the water. It also wanted to leap over the Dragon Gate. A tortoise that had cultivated into a spirit monster was not as slow as humans thought. Not only was it not slow, it was also very fast. Chapter 2447. The 1,000-year-old tortoise went against the current and was about to leap over the Dragon's Gate. Suddenly, the waterfall changed. The water, which was like a piece of cloth, slapped the 1,000-year-old tortoise's body. He saw that the situation was not right. Perhaps he felt the strong power from the Dragon's Gate, so he quickly retracted his head into his shell. At the same time, his entire body was slapped into the river. Because the power was too strong, some of the fish and prawns in the river that wanted to leap over the Dragon's Gate were slapped ashore. If these fish and prawns were not demons, they would have died long ago. Even though they were spiritual monsters, they still looked very miserable at this moment. Many fish and prawns rolled their eyes after being slapped ashore. Some even fainted. Fortunately, the Dragon's Gate was not a place that humans often came to. Otherwise, with so many fish and prawns on the shore, the tasty humans would definitely take baskets of fish and prawns back to eat. The 1,000-year-old tortoise suffered the least damage because his cultivation was deep and his shell was hard. At this moment, he had climbed ashore and transformed into his human form. He looked at the Dragon's Gate in distress. Obviously, he was thinking about why he had failed previously. If you want to leap over, you either have to be able to withstand the power from the Dragon's Gate directly or be fast enough to dodge the attack. Qingheng's voice reached Tang's ears. But it's not easy to do either of these. After the other fish and prawns recovered, they shook their heads. Dodge? Where can we dodge? The water in the Dragon's Gate seems to have eyes. It slaps wherever we go. There's no way to dodge. If we don't dodge, we don't have the shell of the old tortoise. I think we can't even withstand 3 hits and will be seriously injured. Got it. I'll prepare to leap over the Dragon's Gate immediately. The system hesitated. If the host was hit by the water of the Dragon's Gate, should it cover its eyes and then cut out this part of the video so that the host would not feel embarrassed when thinking about it in the future? Do you think I'll do something that I'm not sure of? After hearing Tangua's words, the system was not worried anymore. Big black fish, let's go down. To leap over the Dragon's Gate, one had to transform into their original form and jump into the river below the Dragon's Gate. From the end of the river, one had to swim upwards until they reached the Dragon's Gate, where there was a waterfall. Just this part of the river alone would block the path of many water spirits and monsters who wanted to leap through the Dragon Gate. Do you remember what I told you before? Qingheng was stunned for a moment before he nodded. Yes, I've already prepared everything. He really didn't expect that Guoguo wanted Pei Jiren to build a temple for her because of the Dragon's Gate. Although with their strength, the probability of jumping over was still very high, Guoguo's method was basically 100% certain that they would be able to jump over. Pei Jiren saw the golden Dragon Gate in the sky from afar. She was also shocked when she saw the waterfall pouring down from the sky. It turned out that there was such a miraculous sight in the world. Thinking of what the mysterious man said in her dream, she hurriedly urged her magic weapon to run in that direction. Once Tanghua leaped over the Dragon Gate, she would miss the opportunity to save the prince consort, so she had to be faster. Chapter 2448. She heard that it was not easy to jump over the Dragon Gate. Whether it failed or succeeded, it would definitely take a lot of time. What Pei Jiren wanted to do now was to hurry over and stop Tanghua so that she could go back and save the prince consort first. If the prince consort really died, nothing could be salvaged. And didn't the Dragon Gate open many more times? She would use all kinds of treasures to exchange with the other party as long as she could save the prince consort. If the other party still had feelings for the prince consort, Pei Jiren gritted her teeth and agreed. As long as the prince consort could live, it was better than anything else. At this moment, Tanghua and Qingheng had already jumped into the river. The moment the river submerged their bodies, both of them felt the pressure from the river. Tanghua, Qingheng, and the other water spirits in the river should have been free and unimpeded in the water. But now, they all felt that every time they swam, it was very difficult, as if they were swimming in a quagmire. This resistance, for Tanghua and Qingheng, was a piece of cake. Their bodies were very eye-catching among the fish and prawns. Tanghua's body was golden red, and she looked very beautiful when she swam in the water. Qingheng, on the other hand, was pitch black. However, his scales were extremely glossy, and he was born perfectly. Therefore, he attracted a lot of attention. Tanghua and Qingheng swam quickly to the Dragon Gate waterfall. The surrounding fish and prawns were stunned. Many of the fish and prawns here had participated in the Dragon Gate several times. It was the first time they had seen someone swim so fast. Previously, when the man and woman stood on the shore, they felt that they were not simple. Now that they saw it, they were really not simple. Tanghua did not jump up directly. She was waiting. When Pei Jiren came here and called her, she would jump up again. As for why the other party called her, she could not hear it because the sound of the water was too loud, and she did not hear it. That's right, she was that bad. Qingheng felt that Tanghua was very happy and thought that she was happy because she might be able to jump over the Dragon Gate today. He was originally a little careless, but he became especially serious. He had said in the past that wherever she went, he would be there. He definitely couldn't fall behind. Tanghua's original body was very conspicuous. Pei Jiren rushed over and immediately saw the golden-red carp swimming under the waterfall. She shouted, "Tanghua!" As soon as he finished speaking, the golden-red carp and a black carp that had been swimming under the waterfall jumped up to the top of the waterfall. At the same time, the vertical waterfall of the Dragon Gate seemed to have developed intelligence and branched out to obstruct their advance. At this moment, an inconceivable scene occurred. With Tanghua as the center, countless golden-red carps appeared around her. They looked exactly like her, and all of them rushed toward the Dragon Gate. Not only that, but there were also many black carps leaping towards the Dragon Gate like Qingheng himself. All the fish and prawns were stunned. Pei Jiren was so shocked that she lost her voice. She ran over awkwardly and shouted Tanghua's name. She even said that sushi was poisoned and asked her to go back and save her. However, her voice was almost hoarse, but Tanghua did not seem to hear her. "Tanghua, come back. The prince consort is about to die. Even if you jump over, won't you be sad and regret it when you know that the prince consort is dead in the future? Tanghua, can you hear me?"
Peak.
Chapter 2449. Please save the prince consort. He's already deeply poisoned. Only you can save him. As long as you can save the prince consort, I'm willing to divorce him and fulfill your wish. However, Tanghua really didn't seem to hear it. Her and Qingheng's real bodies kept going up along with the shadows that were similar to their real bodies. Her eyes widened as she hurriedly rushed into the river. Unexpectedly, she was pushed back by a mysterious force and fell to the ground.
Stop shouting.
The one who spoke was the old tortoise that didn't jump over earlier. It's useless even if you shout. They're focused on jumping over the Dragon Gate now. The sound of the water over there must be very loud. They can't hear you. Pei Jiren hurriedly turned her head to see who was speaking. She saw a short old man with a tortoise shell on his back. She bit her lip. "Can you help me call her? Just pass on what I want to say to her." She'll definitely come down if she hears it. Pei Jiren was certain that Tangwa still had Su Shi in her heart and wouldn't let him die. That was why she spoke so confidently. She thought that Tangwa was the same as her. They both loved Su Shi deeply and would do anything for Su Shi. Previously, Tangwa had never hurt Su Shi and even let her go for Su Shi. If it wasn't because she still had feelings for him, why would she do that? This was her only chance to save the prince consort. No matter what, she had to try. If I call her now, I'll be interrupting her opportunity. She'll hate me. I think she's very powerful and can't be offended. You said that you want her to come back to save someone. In this once-in-a-century opportunity, unless that person saved her life or she owes that person a favor, she won't give up her opportunity. Tell me, is there such a relationship between the person you want to save and her? If it's really important to her and she owes you a favor, I can help you call her. If not, I really can't help you. Old Tortoise had good intentions. Demons who focused on cultivation weren't bad. If they could do a good deed, they wouldn't do a bad deed. If the person Pei Jiren wanted to save really had such a relationship with Tangwa, reminding Tangwa was equivalent to befriending her. If there wasn't such a relationship, he would be disturbing her and breaking her opportunity if he reminded her. Pei Jiren saw that Tangwa and Qingheng's positions were getting higher and higher. It wouldn't be long before they made the great leap. Although she knew that Su Shi didn't owe Tangwa, if it wasn't for Tangwa's appearance, Su wouldn't be able to pass the imperial examinations. She still steeled her heart and said, "She owes my husband a favor. Elder, please help me call her. If my husband dies, even if she jumps over, she will feel guilty. She might even have a heart demon. If that's the case, I'll go over and help you call her." Hearing the system's reminder, Tangwa's lips curled into a smile. She activated her power and saw the shadows around her go up faster and faster. Just as Old Tortoise was about to reach the waterfall and was about to call her with his demon power, one of her shadows had already jumped up the dragon gate. Chapter 2450. At that moment, her entire consciousness was thrown into the shadow. Her body teleported and landed on the shadow. The pressure on her body dissipated, and a celestial voice sounded in her ears. Her body was also covered by a magical power that seemed to be transforming her body. "Big black fish, come up quickly," she shouted. Qingheng also used her method. When one of his shadows jumped onto the dragon gate, he put all his consciousness into the shadow. His body instantly teleported up and jumped onto the dragon gate as well. Both of them turned into human forms and walked into the dragon gate hand in hand. The fish, shrimp, and Pei Jiren below were stunned. They were just in the middle of the waterfall. How did they go up in an instant? Old Tortoise, who originally went to call Tangwa, saw all of this. He closed his eyes and retracted his head into a shell. He actually started to comprehend. His body fell into the river and let the river water splash on his body. Pei Jiren came back to her senses and collapsed on the spot. So that's how it is. After a while, Old Tortoise jumped out of the river and went straight to the dragon gate. He did not forget to turn around and say to Pei Jiren, "If Old Tortoise can go up this time, I will definitely pass on your words to her. Wait for a while." Pei Jiren, who was originally in despair, had hope again. She stood up and stared at Old Tortoise. This time, when Old Tortoise climbed to the middle of the waterfall, countless shadows suddenly appeared around him. Although they were not as good as Tangwa and Qingheng, the shadows around Tangwa and Qingheng were actually some of the consciousness in the temple. She only took away the consciousness of the shadows in some remote places. She did not touch the consciousness of the places where the incense was particularly strong. Because of the power of faith, her body could be instantly thrown into the consciousness of the shadows at any time. This time, she had used this method to easily leap over the dragon's gate. The power of the dragon gate to attack those who jumped over the dragon gate was based on their own power. However, her shadows did not have any power. As long as one of her shadows jumped onto the dragon gate, she could instantly teleport up. She had been thinking about this kind of cheating method for a while. When Qingheng heard this method, He was also stunned. Later on, he thought that the Dragon Gate didn't say that he couldn't use this method. As long as he could leap up, wouldn't it be a display of strength? In the end, he used the method that Tangwa taught him with a clear conscience. However, what Tangwa didn't expect was that old tortoise, who was especially smart, had also learned something. Even though he was in a sorry state, the old tortoise still used half of his demonic power to jump up. Tangwa was talking to Qingheng. Suddenly, she saw something falling from afar. Qingheng quickly pulled her away to avoid it. Old Tortoise fell back to its original position and struggled for a while before reverting to his original form. There were many wounds on his face. His strength was not as strong as Tangwa's, so it took him a lot of effort to conjure those virtual consciousnesses. Fortunately, he managed to make it out safely. When he landed on the ground, his body was covered by a mysterious power, and his wounds were slowly healing. When he saw Tangwa, he quickly tidied up his clothes and bowed to Tangwa with a sincere expression. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Tangwa pondered for a moment and understood. "You're welcome. You have a good comprehension ability." "Fellow Taoist, there's a woman from the mortal world below who seems to be looking for you. It seems that someone is dying. She also said that the person has done you a favor and wants you to save her." When Tangwa heard that, she remembered that the system said that Pei Jiaran had deceived this silly old tortoise. If the old tortoise hadn't been deceived, he wouldn't have come to the bottom of the waterfall. If he hadn't come here, he wouldn't have been able to comprehend all this at a close distance. No one in the mortal world has done me a favor, but there was once a mortal bond. It wasn't that she did me a favor. On the contrary, I helped her a lot. Seeing Tangwa's half-smile, Old Tortoise immediately understood. He glanced behind him angrily. She lied to me. He was kind enough to risk his life to call Tangwa. "Fellow Taoist Tortoise, don't worry about this. You've profited from a disaster. Let's go to the heavenly realm now." She didn't want to go back and see Pei Jiaran crying. Anyway, so she wouldn't really die. It was wishful thinking for her to waste her demonic power to save him. Didn't Shi have his father? Let his father save him. He only knew how to scheme against little demons like them. "Fellow Taoist, you're right." Old Tortoise immediately understood and was no longer upset about being deceived. He hurriedly followed behind Tangwa, thinking that following her would be especially promising. "Fellow Taoist, why don't we go together? We can take care of each other." Chapter 2451. Pei Jiaran waited for a long time under the Dragon Gate. The sun was about to set, but the old tortoise still hadn't returned. She paced anxiously by the river, but there was nothing she could do. She looked at the fish and prawns that were constantly swimming against the current in the river. Occasionally, they would be slapped to the shore by the river. When she saw the fish and prawns that were slapped to the shore, she hurried over and asked them why the old tortoise hadn't returned yet. She also asked them if they could help her ask. The fish and prawns all shook their heads. "I hope I can help you, but as you can see, there are only 3 people who have jumped over the Dragon Gate. With our strength, we really can't help you." Yes, after a whole day, only 3 people had successfully jumped over the Dragon Gate: Tangwa, Qingheng, and the old tortoise. The other fish and prawns with higher cultivation had also figured out the trick of jumping over the Dragon Gate. However, they didn't succeed. First, their cultivation wasn't high enough, and their speed wasn't fast enough. Even if they were shadows, they would be attacked by the Dragon Gate. With their strength, they couldn't create more than 10 shadows. It took a lot of demonic power to create 10 shadows, and they couldn't use demonic power to protect themselves and the shadows. In the end, they came to a conclusion. Although Tangwa and the other 2 used an opportunistic method, without strength it wouldn't work. Then why hasn't the old tortoise come back yet? He promised me that he would inform Tangwa. Pei Jiaran was a little angry. He had promised, but the sky was getting dark. Did the old tortoise forget about it because he had achieved his goal? He didn't care about other people's affairs. He was too untrustworthy.
"We don't know.
We only know what will happen after jumping over the Dragon Gate." The fish and prawns that had been seriously injured by the river didn't plan to jump over the Dragon Gate for the time being. Instead, they decided to rest for a day before continuing. After all, the Dragon Gate would be open for 3 days. In this situation, they couldn't continue even if they wanted to. Maybe, after jumping over the Dragon Gate, they will be taken to the heaven realm by the fairy children and be appointed as immortal officials by the celestial emperor. He's about to become an immortal. How could he still remember the matters of a mere mortal like you? We can't possibly delay his ascension to immortality because of your matters, right? When Pei Jiren heard this, her heart was filled with despair and anger. In the face of human life, was an immortal official that important? Even if she was angry, there was nothing she could do. She tried to break through. Even though she had some skills, she was pushed back by a force as soon as she reached the river. Seeing how persistent she was, some fish and shrimp said to her, "This Dragon Gate only opens for the spiritual monsters in the water. You're a human, so you can't jump or get close to it. I advise you to go back. Don't wait any longer. I've never seen anyone come down from the sky. They won't come back." Pei Jiren refused to leave. The fishes and shrimps also needed to heal themselves and prepare to leap through the Dragon Gate again. He had already wasted a lot of time talking to her. The sky gradually darkened, but Pei Jiren was still standing by the river. She had no intention of leaving. When the sun rose, she looked at the entrance of the Dragon Gate with hope, but still, no one appeared. The sun set and rose again. During this time, no fish or shrimp had jumped over the Dragon Gate. However, the number of fish and shrimps that had been trying to jump over only increased, even if they knew that they might fail. Chapter 2452. As far as they knew, every time the Dragon Gate opened, there would only be 1 or 2 fish and prawns that could jump over. This time, there were as many as 3, which was already a lot. However, they were still unwilling to give up until the very end. Perhaps there would be a miracle among them? Until the sun set on the hillside, the river that was originally flowing rapidly was actually flowing backwards towards the Dragon Gate in the sky from the end of the river. When the fish and prawns saw this, they tried their best to climb up. However, at the waterfall, a wave came crashing down, pushing all the fish and prawns to the banks. The water surged from the ground to the sky. In the blink of an eye, the river from before had disappeared without a trace. There was no water at the entrance of the Dragon Gate. A ray of light shone down from above. The ground that was originally rushed over by the river gradually had some short grass and tall trees. Under Pei Jiren's shocked gaze, the Dragon Gate closed. She looked at the lush trees in front of her and rubbed her eyes. She still could not believe that there was a rushing river here before. Why did it suddenly disappear and turn into trees? She quickly looked around and saw that the fish and prawns had already transformed into human forms. They shook their heads regretfully and muttered, "We have to wait another 100 years. Let's go back and cultivate. I think the carp demon's method is still useful. Why don't we go back and ponder for 100 years? Maybe we can jump over next time." As for the fishes and prawns that were unable to transform, they were taken away by those who could transform. Pei Jiren looked at the sky again. At the place where the Dragon Gate had appeared before, there were only 2 white clouds floating there. She did not know if it was because the Dragon Gate had appeared here before, but the 2 white clouds were exceptionally white. The air here was also very fresh. The trees and grass under the clouds seemed to be greener than elsewhere. However, she was not in the mood to look at these beautiful scenery. Now that her mind was in a mess, she suddenly felt resentful. She gritted her teeth and finally activated her Dharma artifact and rushed back. The prince consort did not have much time left. Since she could not find Tangua, she might as well go back and have another dream. She did not know if she could still dream of that mysterious person. The other party must be a very powerful person, perhaps an immortal. Thinking of this, Pei Jiren felt a little vexed. She thought she was smart, but why didn't she think of asking that immortal to cure the prince consort's poison? Why did he have to look for Tangua? In her frustration, Pei Jiren hurried back to the capital and arrived at the princess residence within a few hours. How is the prince consort? Your Highness, the prince consort still hasn't woken up. The imperial physician came and said that if we don't think of a way, the prince consort only has 1 day left to live. Got it. Pei Jiren did not dare to delay any further. She only went to take a look at Su Shi before returning to her room. She lay down with her clothes on and tried her best to fall asleep. She hoped that she could dream of the immortal who gave her the instrument. This time, she was not disappointed. She dreamed of the tall and burly immortal from before. Did you save Su Shi? The Wutsu star could not always keep an eye on the lower realms matters. Moreover, keeping an eye on the lower realms matters all the time would also consume magic power. Moreover, in his opinion, this matter was in the bag. That carp demon was already tempted by his son. Saving his son was just a waste of an opportunity, not a life-threatening situation. Chapter 2453. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't directly intervene, she wouldn't have come. Moreover, she was sent by the 9 Brilliant Star official to his son's side. She should be the one to solve everything. I was 1 step too late. When I arrived, Tangguo was about to leap onto the Dragon's Gate. I couldn't stop her and could only watch as she leaped onto the Dragon's Gate. Pei Jiren said angrily. Later on, an old turtle promised me before he leaped onto the Dragon's Gate that he would inform Tangguo about the prince consort's trouble. However, he didn't come down after he leaped onto the Dragon's Gate. So, Immortal Elder, can you save my prince consort? Pei Jiren bit her lip and pleaded, other than asking for your help, I can't think of anyone else who can save my prince consort. When the military star heard this, he was shocked. You're saying that the carp demon has already leaped onto the Dragon's Gate? Yes, not only did she leap onto the Dragon's Gate, but the black carp beside her also leaped onto the Dragon's Gate. The old turtle must have comprehended something from her method of leaping onto the Dragon's Gate and succeeded in the end. The reason why Pei Jiren was so clear was because she had her own plans. Why did this immortal elder appear in her dreams for no reason? He even gave her a Dharma treasure to help her travel. If he wasn't related to Su Shi, then he was related to her. Naturally, she had to tell him everything clearly. If he was really an immortal elder, then he would definitely meet Tangguo and that old turtle in the future. No matter what, he had to teach them a lesson to take revenge for not saving her prince consort in time. Immortal Elder, can you save my prince consort? Pei Jiren asked anxiously when he didn't speak. The military star official was helpless. He was able to give Pei Jiren a Dharma treasure because he secretly cast a shadow into the mortal realm to give her the Dharma treasure. Now that she was able to see him in her dreams, it was only his consciousness that appeared in her dreams and not his shadow. It was too late for him to rush to the mortal realm to save Su Shi. At first, he thought that it was fine for his son to like Pei Jiren. After all, they had been through so much trouble. When he found out that the 9 Brilliant Star official was so anxious to create all kinds of obstacles, he thought that there was no need for him to help these 2 children and anger that old thing to death. Now he couldn't do anything. A day in heaven is a year on earth. Even if I could help you, I wouldn't be able to. Furthermore, he really could not make a move directly. However, if you are able to find the culprit who harmed Su Shi and capture him, you will still be able to save his life. I'm guessing that the Black Bear spirit is the one who harmed the prince consort. However, he has never shown himself since he harmed someone. I don't know where to find him either. Immortal Elder, is it because someone has a grudge against me that they sent that Black Bear spirit to expose me and the prince consort? I can't do anything about it. You'll know in the future. In fact, Military Star was furious, but he couldn't show it in front of Pei Jiren. Immortal Elder, please. Pei Jiren wanted to say something, but Military Star had already disappeared from her dream. She was startled awake. At the same time, she heard chaotic footsteps coming from outside. Your Highness, it's not good. Prince Consort, Pei Jiren didn't have time to think too much and hurriedly ran to see Su Shi. The imperial physician was beside Su Shi, holding his wrist and shaking his head. When he saw Pei Jiren, he hurriedly knelt down with a terrified expression. "Your Highness, the prince consort is all ready. Your Highness, my condolences." Chapter 2454. Pei Jiren widened her eyes and took a few steps back. Her face was pale as she said, "That's impossible. How could the prince consort die without me?"
No. How could he die?
Regardless of whether Pei Jiren believed it or not, Sushi was dead. A few days later, Pei Jiren held Sushi's funeral with a pale face and an expressionless face. After Sushi was buried, Pei Jiren summoned her confidants and gave them her first order. "Go, smash all the koi temples." "Your Highness, this..." "What? You can't even listen to me? I built the koi temples so I can smash them if I want to. What do I have to fear? If you don't want to live anymore, you don't have to go." "Yes, Your Highness. This subordinate will go immediately." That day, Pei Jiren's confidants smashed all the koi temples in the capital. This attracted the wrath of countless people. Later, someone heard that the prince consort was poisoned and Pei Jiren went to beg the great koi goddess. It was probably because the great koi goddess didn't cure the prince consort that Pei Jiren bore a grudge. Now that the prince consort was dead, she was so angry that she wanted to smash the temples. She must be insincere. I've worshipped the great koi goddess for many years. Apart from making those ridiculous requests, everything else has come true. The great koi goddess is different. She won't give you benefits for no reason. Instead, she will guide you in the right direction. Her most efficacious blessings are actually a type of auspicious blessing. For example, when I'm outside, I'm always worried that my husband will run into bandits. So, I go to the great koi goddess every time and pray sincerely. Until now, my husband hasn't run into any danger. Even if he does run into bandits, he's always lucky enough to escape. Isn't this all thanks to the great koi goddess? I heard that the prince consort was poisoned and all the divine doctors in the world couldn't save him. You can't blame the great koi goddess for this. That's right. I remember a long time ago, I went to the great koi goddess to give me some holy water to treat my child's illness. The great koi goddess told me that I should see a doctor if I'm sick. In the end, she even introduced me to a benevolent and skilled doctor. That medicine took 2 or 3 doses, and it worked. My child's body is extremely strong now. Sigh. Who asked her to be the emperor's daughter? That's right. We can't do anything. We can only talk about it secretly. Thinking about it still makes me angry. Although the koi god's temple has been smashed, she will always live in my heart. I still believe in her. If the temple is gone, can't we just worship the statue? Wasn't it the same as worshipping a bodhisattva? This time, the princess has angered the public. The emperor can't possibly send people to search every house, right? Yes, let's do that. Let's worship the koi god at home. Pei Jiren would never have thought that a single act of destroying a temple would cause the people to resent her, the princess. On the other hand, Tanghua had lost 3,000 temples, but she had gained more idols that were worshipped by every household. The power of faith was much more than before. Those who worshipped her with sincerity would have a consciousness born on the statue. These consciousnesses were the consciousnesses that had temporarily resided in the 3,000 temples. His consciousness lived in this statue for a while, then lived in that statue for a while. Over time, a new consciousness was born. As the saying goes, a year on earth is a day in heaven. After a few months on earth, Tanghua had already arrived in heaven. In fact, it was only half a day.
Peak.
Chapter 2455. When the temple was smashed, she sensed it. Qingheng also sensed it. He glanced at Tanghua and said, "Sushi's death must have made Pei Jiren angry and smashed Guogua's temple. This doesn't affect me much." Tanghua comforted. Qingheng was obviously not reconciled. Those who bullied his Guogua were all bad people. "Guogua, I want to curse her." Tanghua was amused. "Big black fish. What do you want to curse her about?" then curse her to be unlucky and fall out of favor. Don't talk about letting Guogwa save Su Shi. It would be too easy if she didn't kill him personally. That Pei Jiaran is just wishful thinking. Okay, just casually say a few words. Don't waste your magic power on that kind of person. Qing Heng was somewhat happy. I know. In fact, it didn't consume much magic power. Since Guogwa said not to waste it, then he wouldn't waste it. Under the incredulous gaze of the old turtle, Qing Heng really took a few steps and said a few words to curse Pei Jiaran to be unlucky and fall out of favor. It was clearly a simple sentence, but why did he feel a chill run down his spine? After a while, Tangua suddenly felt the power of faith from the lower realm. Qing Heng was the guardian of the koi god. When the people worshipped Tangua, they also counted Qing Heng. Therefore, he also felt the power of faith. Although it wasn't as much as Tangua, it was still a lot. Let me see what's going on. Tangua found a place, and Qing Heng stood guard beside her. She sat cross-legged and cast her consciousness on the new consciousness.
Soon she understood what was going on.
Taoist Qing Heng, can I ask what's going on? The old turtle felt that these two Taoists weren't simple. Qing Heng didn't know how many times he cursed Pei Jiaran. He felt that things weren't that bad, and was in a good mood. Therefore, when Old Tortoise asked him a question, he answered and told Old Tortoise about what had happened. So that's how it is. That girl from before was a princess of the mortal world. She wanted to save her husband, the prince consort. This prince consort didn't do anything to fellow Taoist Tangua. Instead, it was you who did him a great favor. In the end, not only did he betray fellow Taoist Tangua, he even brought trouble to her time and time again. Old Tortoise's face turned red as he continued, then she's too shameless. She even lied to Old Tortoise and said that Su Shi had done Taoist Tangua a favor. These mortals are indeed as cunning as the legends say. Yes, Guogwa said that even mortals have their good points. There aren't many who are as shameless as her. There was no need to be polite to such a shameless person. Back then, she wanted to kill Guogwa. Guogwa made her build a temple to atone for her sins. Now that Guogwa didn't save Su Shi, she smashed the temple. How despicable! Old Tortoise was filled with righteous indignation. Fortunately, Old Tortoise wasn't capable enough and didn't disturb you when you were leaping through the dragon gate. Otherwise, Old Tortoise will suffer a lifetime of sins. Wasn't it a sin to help someone destroy their opportunity? Old Tortoise, you don't have to be angry. Now, the common people still know that Guogwa is good and have already consecrated statues of Guogwa in their homes. These are all people whom Guogwa helped. They are the best among mortals. They don't forget kindness.
Fellow Taoist is right.
Whether it's mortals or demons, there are good and bad people. It's good that they understand this. It's also their good fortune. Old Tortoise had long guessed the abilities of Tangua and Qing Heng. To be able to be consecrated by the Bai family, they must have a certain level of ability.
Peak.
Chapter 2456. Moreover, Qing Heng had cursed Pei Jiaran before. He did not think that it was just a simple sentence. After thinking about it carefully, he understood. After Tangua found out the truth, she did not immediately return her consciousness. Instead, she used the consciousness in the lower realm to check the situation in the mortal realm. Pei Jiaran's destruction of the temple had indeed made many people who believed in her angry, but they did not dare to say anything. These people who believed in her were able to secretly worship the idols in their homes. She had already taken special care of them. Since they had chosen to believe in her, they were all her believers. They had given her the power of faith, so she naturally had to return half of the power of faith to them and turn it into blessings. She would not do anything heaven-defying. At most, she would let them live a peaceful life with fewer disasters and illnesses. As for the 3,000 consciousnesses from before, she did not intend to take them back. Instead, she let them stay in the mortal realm and continue to cultivate in the idols. They helped her believers to complete some small traceability. After Pei Jiaran did that, although the emperor was somewhat dissatisfied, She was the emperor's most beloved daughter, so he allowed her to do whatever she wanted. However, Tangwa found that Pei Jiren had another way to vent her anger. She ordered people to catch fish and only kill carps. After killing them, she threw them aside. She did not eat them or use them for other purposes. Later on, when they caught carps, she did not order people to kill them. Instead, she ordered people to throw them into the fire and burn them alive. She knew that Pei Jiren was angry at her and used this method to vent her anger. Seeing all this, she was somewhat unhappy.
She wasn't the one who killed Su Shi.
Wasn't it up to her whether she saved Su Shi or not? Pei Jiren did this because she thought that she should save Su Shi and that she had to save him. Why should she? Tangwa's consciousness returned to her body. She opened her eyes and said to Qing Heng, an old tortoise, "Wait for me for a few days. I have something to do." "Guagua, are you in trouble?" Qing Heng had to admit that he understood Tangwa a little. Did Pei Jiren do something again? She wantonly catches carps. She doesn't make a living by catching fish with the fishermen of the mortal realm. Instead, she burns them alive after catching them. Tangwa frowned. She has the demon-binding rope in her hands. Sooner or later, she will catch and kill the carps that have gained intelligence. When the time comes and they die because of me, it will be my fault. I have to settle this matter. After all, I'm the one who left this problem behind. When Old Tortoise heard this, his face trembled with anger. All living beings had to rely on some kind of work to survive. The fishermen in the mortal world caught fish, prawns, and turtles that did not have spiritual intelligence. These spiritual monsters had long been accustomed to it. This was because some of these fishes and prawns were unable to develop intelligence. Just like him, other than turtles, fish, and prawns, he also ate some meat that ran on land. Go ahead, fellow Taoist. With me here, no one will disturb you. Old Tortoise quickly patted his chest and promised. Qing Heng also nodded, looking like he was protecting her. However, when Tangwa closed her eyes again, Qing Heng said, "Fellow Taoist Tortoise, I have to cast a curse on the other party later. I'll have to trouble you." Old Tortoise's mouth twitched. "All right. I think fellow Taoist Tangwa is afraid that you will get hurt because of this.
Take it easy."
After all, Old Tortoise had lived for who knows how many years. He had long seen the signs, which was why he gave such advice. This time, Qing Heng used his dermic powers to curse Pei Jiren to be unlucky and lose favor. On the other hand, Tangwa gathered all of her consciousness and asked them to save the carps that were about to be burned to death. Chapter 2457. At this time, many strange things happened. Pei Jiren's confidant had already thrown the carp into the bonfire. Unexpectedly, at this moment, heavy rain began to fall from the sky and extinguished the bonfire. The carp followed the rapid flow of water and returned to the river. The miraculous scene played out one after another, causing countless people to discuss that the koi god had appeared. After Pei Jiren found out about this, she was very angry. She planned to use the demon-binding rope to tie up a few carps that had become spirits and burn them. She wanted to anger Tangwa and let her understand that if she had saved her husband, nothing would have happened. However, she did not succeed because Tangwa commanded 3,000 consciousnesses. Wherever she went, she would be followed. She had already informed the carps to not come out for the time being. Now, in the river, lake, and sea, not a single carp could be seen. Because of this, Pei Jiren went back angrily. The emperor was very dissatisfied with Pei Jiren's mischievous behavior. She did not have the demeanor of a princess at all. He believed in the koi god. Otherwise, how could there have been so many coincidences? He was still praying in his heart that the koi god had only stopped Pei Jiren's actions and did not harm the people or bring disaster to his country. Regarding this, the emperor's heart was terrified. Even if she was a god, it did not mean that she would always be forgiving. If one day Pei Jiren angered her, who knew what would happen? However, she was the daughter he had doted on for many years. He could not bear to part with her. While the emperor was hesitating, a few strange things happened in the remote areas. The north had been dry for several months. The people had no harvest and could not live on. Even with the relief food, they could barely fill their stomachs. However, the water source was a big problem. No one knew who asked the Koi god to rain. Unexpectedly, the Koi god responded and brought rain to the north. As for the south, it rained a lot. All kinds of mountain floods happened continuously, but there were no casualties. According to the news, these people worshipped the Koi god in their homes. Before the mountain floods, the Koi god asked them to escape to a safe place. The emperor, who had been hesitating, finally made a decision to rebuild 3,000 temples for the Koi god. After the emperor gave the decree, he was praised by countless people as a wise ruler. He could feel that it was not flattery but sincere. He also placed a Koi god statue in the palace. It was a standing golden red carp. Next to the golden red carp, there was an even bigger black carp. It was said to be the guardian of the Koi god. Thank you, Koi god, for forgiveness. From now on, I will watch over Jiaren, and I will not let her act recklessly. Tangwa sensed it and directly possessed the statue in the palace. This matter is between me and her. She blames me for not saving the prince consort. I won't hurt innocent people because of this. I also don't want her to hurt innocent people because of this. Why don't you tell her that if she wants to cause trouble for me, she can come straight to me?
Yes.
The last sentence was ignored by the emperor. The appearance of the Koi great god had indeed intimidated him. The other party's attitude also reassured him. To the palace, to the Guaguagua emperor, the Chapter 2458. The emperor was so angry that he grounded her. However, Pei Jiren refused to comply and caused a lot of trouble. She became arrogant and unreasonable and finally angered the emperor. He locked her in the princess residence, and she could never leave without permission. Seeing this, Tangwa withdrew her consciousness and returned to her body. Guagua, is it done? She opened her eyes and saw Qing Heng's concerned gaze. Tangwa looked at Qing Heng and pinched his face. You're so obedient. Did you do something bad behind my back? It's nothing. Qing Heng couldn't lie in front of Tangwa. I just used a little bit of magic and cursed her a little. Old Tortoise, who was listening at the side, burst into laughter. Big black fish, look, Daoist Tortoise is laughing at you. How dare you do something bad behind my back? I'm actually angry that Guagua was bullied. That's right. Wasn't Pei Jiren going too far? If not for Guagua's power, she would have been killed. At this moment, the Celestial Emperor also knew that someone had successfully made the leap. Celestial Emperor, there are 3 people who made the leap this year.
Oh, there are so many.
The Celestial Emperor was very surprised. Send 2 fairy children to summon them. Yes, Tangwa and the other 2 were strolling around when they suddenly saw people approaching from afar. When they were in front of them, they realized that the 2 of them were not very old. They should be the legendary fairy children. Congratulations to the 3 of you for successfully making the leap. Please follow us to see the Celestial Emperor. Old Tortoise was the most nervous. He tried his best to straighten his hunched back. Because he had been carrying a tortoiseshell for a long time, it was not easy for him to straighten his back. Tangwa and Qing Heng looked at each other and finally agreed with a smile. They followed the 2 Celestial Emperors to see the Celestial Emperor. In the blink of an eye, they were invited into the Lingxiao Hall and saw the Celestial Emperor who had extraordinary immortal power. Beside the Celestial Emperor sat the Celestial Empress. On the left and right were the immortal officials of the Celestial Realm. When the 3 of them entered, they instantly became the center of attention. Except for Old Tortoise, who was a little nervous and had stage fright, Tangwa and Qing Heng were extremely calm. The Sky Emperor was just about to take a good look at the 3 of them, but when his gaze landed on Tangwa and Qing Heng, he couldn't look away. All the immortal officials present were puzzled. Why was the Celestial Emperor staring at these newcomers? Could it be that the Heavenly Emperor suddenly fell in love with beauty? It had to be said that these 2 carp demons were indeed beautiful. That old tortoise, on the other hand, was a little ugly. It was no wonder that the Celestial Emperor did not even look at Old Tortoise. His Majesty the Heavenly Emperor? The Heavenly Empress couldn't help but remind him. This old thing, wasn't he just a little good-looking? He actually dared to have feelings for her. Let's see if I don't teach him a lesson when I get back. The Celestial Emperor came back to his senses and coughed lightly. I was just curious. There are actually 3 people leaping through the Dragon Gate this time. Now that I've seen them, my doubts have been cleared. This is your opportunity. The Celestial Emperor smiled faintly. The immortal officials were no longer curious. Today, Carp Demon is conferred the title of Carp Immortal Lord, and Carp Demon Ching hung the title of Carp Immortal General. The Celestial Emperor coughed lightly. As for you, Old Tortoise, you shall be conferred the title of Turtle Immortal. Then, the Celestial Emperor called 2 immortal children over and brought the 3 of them to the territory that he had allocated to them. After the 3 of them left, the Heavenly Empress reminded, His Majesty the Celestial Emperor, did you forget to ask them to enter the Immortal Bestowment Book? Newly conferred immortal officials in the heavenly realm all had to enter the Immortal Bestowment Book. In the past, when they entered the Divine Wind Palace, the Celestial Emperor would throw the Immortal Bestowment Book in front of them. How could he forget today? The Celestial Emperor seemed to have really forgotten. He patted his head and said somewhat vexedly, I really forgot about this. I didn't bring the Immortal Bestowment Book today. Then, should we call them back? The Celestial Emperor shook his head. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, There's no need. They're merely 2 carp demons. Let's talk about it another day, when we remember them. Without waiting for the immortals to ask any more questions, the Celestial Emperor used the excuse that he had comprehended some Dao technique and hurriedly left. Although the Heavenly Empress was puzzled, she did not ask any more questions. The Celestial Emperor was right. 2 carp demons and an old tortoise were indeed unable to cause any big waves. Guagua. The Celestial Emperor seemed to have quickly hidden something in his sleeve just now. Is that so? Although he moved very quickly, I saw it clearly. Qing Heng said very confidently. The old tortoise was very confused. He did not see it either. It's none of our business what he hid. I'll go take a look at the new place first.
Peek.
Chapter 2459. Tanggua and the other 2 followed behind the 2 celestial children, heading towards the area allocated to them by the Celestial Emperor. The one who couldn't hold back the most was the old turtle. The joy on his face couldn't be controlled. If it weren't for the 2 celestial children in front of him, he really wanted to laugh out loud. Seeing that Tanggua and Qing Heng were extremely indifferent, he hurriedly controlled his expression. In any case, he had been conferred as an immortal official. Beaming with joy like this would be a disgrace to the 2 fellow Taoists. Halfway through, the 2 immortal children paused for a moment, then returned to the front of them and bowed. 3 immortal officials. The place assigned to Lord Turtle Immortal is in the west, so I would like to invite Lord Turtle Immortal and this little one here. The place allocated to Koi Immortal Monarch and Koi Immortal General is in the east. Please follow me. The other celestial child followed. Tanggua could clearly feel that the celestial child who was talking to her still had some confusion and surprise on his face. The old turtle, on the other hand, was smiling and didn't have any superfluous thoughts. Although the celestial child who was talking to him wasn't as attentive as Tanggua, he was also good-natured and didn't have the slightest feeling of superiority. This was a bit different from the heavenly realm that he imagined. He thought that he should be basking in Tanggua's glory. Then, fellow Taoists, I will first follow the celestial envoy to the west. When everything is arranged, let's meet again. Tanggua and Qing Heng nodded, while the old turtle followed the celestial child to the west. Tanggua discovered that the west was the direction they were going to go just now. The celestial child who stayed by their side did indeed make an inviting gesture and led them back. When they arrived outside the Spirit Firmament Palace, the celestial child even asked the 2 of them to wait for a while. Not long after, the The celestial child quickly floated in front of her and handed her a token with both hands. Esteemed Koi Immortal Monarch, this is your celestial token. Tangwa took the celestial token. A golden red carp was engraved on the token, and beside the golden red carp, there was a medium-sized fortune's character written beside it. She turned over the back, but there was no pattern on the back, only a few words, her name and official rank. Lord Immortal Koi General, this is your immortal plate. Qingheng also took it and looked at it. Seeing that Tangwa was very curious, he moved the sign in front of her. This time, Tangwa saw it clearly. There was also a black carp carved on the surface of the sign. Next to it was the same as hers. There was a word. E. Behind the sign was Qingheng's name and official rank. Seeing that the two did not understand, the immortal child hurriedly explained, what Koi Immortal Monarch controls is fortune. The fortune of the three realms is controlled by Lord Immortal Monarch. Lord Immortal General, what you control is misfortune. The misfortune of the three realms is completely under your control. Although the immortal child did not understand why, this immortal tablet was taken from the Sky Emperor. The Sky Emperor must have his reasons for making such an arrangement. This was not something a small immortal child like him could guess. System, Tangwa put away the immortal tablet and said regretfully, I thought I would be able to fight with the celestial arch. Looks like I won't be able to do that. He wants to be friends with me. I can't possibly beat him up. The system did not know what to say. He knew that the great host had worked so hard to cultivate in order to not be restricted in the future, and even used the power of the stars to cultivate. Unexpectedly, the celestial Thearcha's realm was high. He must have calculated something and did not want to become the great host's enemy. Qingheng did not see wrongly. The celestial arch had indeed hidden something in his sleeve. That thing was the immortal investiture book. Chapter 2460. In the end, Tangwa and Qingheng were led by the immortal child to a territory in the east. There was nothing here. There were no houses or buildings, but clouds and mist lingered, filling the air with dense, immortal qi. The mountains were green and the water was clear. It was indeed a good place to live. The immortal child took out an immortal book and came in front of Tangwa. Lord Immortal Monarch, Lord Immortal General, take a look and see what kind of pavilion you like. It's all here. Tangwa and Qingheng hurriedly flipped through it. After reading a few pages, Tangwa looked at Qingheng. Big black fish, what kind of pavilion do you like? What Guogua likes is what I like. Tangwa pursed her lips and smiled. I can't choose, help me choose. The immortal child. Two lords, please don't be like this. He is still a child who hasn't grown up. Although immortals and immortals can have love, this is obviously not good, right? Aren't you afraid of teaching bad things to children? This time, Qingheng didn't refuse. He chose seriously and finally chose a pavilion that he thought Tangwa would like. Actually, what he said was true. What his Guogua liked was what he liked. To him, it didn't matter where he lived. As long as there was clean water, nothing else mattered. After the immortal child confirmed the two's choice, he cast a spell on the book. In the end, the pavilion on the book moved, as if it was alive, slowly floating out of the book and landing on the ground in front of them. It gradually grew bigger, turning into the beautiful pavilions and courtyards that were usually seen in the heaven realm. Tangwa glanced at the book, only to see that the place where the pavilion was previously drawn had become blank. The immortal child hurriedly explained, the pavilions here are all refined by the heaven realm's craftsmen and stored here. So, it really wasn't made by him. No matter how powerful an immortal was, they couldn't make a physical house out of thin air, unless it was an illusion. As for illusions, they also had a time limit. After a time, the illusion would disappear. If two lords need someone to serve you, please directly enlighten the immortal child servant. The people of the heaven realm were still very afraid of someone helping them arrange people to serve them. That was why the immortal child said this. If there's anything else you need, please don't hesitate to send someone to instruct us. He could see that these two were highly valued by His Majesty the Celestial Emperor, so he had to keep a close eye on them so as not to neglect them. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. After the immortal child bowed, he turned to leave. Tangwa quickly said, "Thank you. I wouldn't dare. This is what I should do." Tangwa's interest was suddenly piqued. She used a bit of her transcendence energy and said to the celestial child, "A celestial child as diligent and responsible as you will definitely have good luck." The celestial child was stunned for a moment. She turned around and saw Tangwa's smiling face. She hurriedly bowed and thanked, "Thank you, Lord Immortal, for your auspicious words." No matter what, anyone who heard such words would definitely be happy. Even if he didn't receive any additional rewards, he didn't mind. Perhaps the immortal monarch was a pure spirit who didn't know about worldly affairs? Qing Heng seemed to understand Tangwa's words and also said, "Misfortune will never fall on your head." Hearing Qing Heng's words, the celestial child almost staggered. She wiped the cold sweat on her forehead and hurriedly ran away. As expected, these two lords should be cultivating wholeheartedly in the mortal realm, so they were a bit naive. "Big black fish, look, you scared him. He's still a child. Next time you talk less to a child. If you scare him, his elders will definitely come to settle the score with you."
Peak.
Chapter 20, 461. The celestial child, who had already gone far away, had an indescribable expression when he heard this. He thought that he should send a heavenly realm survival manual to the two of them some other day. He was so naive that he wouldn't even know if he was schemed against by other adults in the future. Perhaps he was really frightened. The celestial child's footsteps were somewhat hurried. Suddenly, he didn't know what he stepped on, but he actually fell down. Even if he hurriedly used his magic power to control his body's balance, he still fell head first. His face was close to the ground, and he screamed, thinking that he would fall on his face. Although it wasn't a big deal, it was still very embarrassing. But when he was randomly grabbing something, he didn't know what he caught, but he felt that it was slippery. He planned to use this thing to get up, but when he stood up and saw this thing, he was so scared that he jumped far away. It turned out that what he caught was actually a snake. Even if it didn't seem to have spiritual intelligence, he was still a little scared because he was most afraid of snakes. This wasn't the end. The place he jumped far away turned out to be a cliff, and his whole body directly fell down. He shouted again. Only then did he remember that he was a celestial child and hurriedly used his magic power to stabilize his body. Using the vines beside the cliff, he leaned on it. When he let out a long sigh of relief, he suddenly felt a fragrance at the tip of his nose. He subconsciously glanced at the cliff, and this glance stunned him. What entered his eyes were a few colorful flowers, shining with golden light, simply blinding his eyes. Although he was a celestial child, he had been in the immortal realm for a long time, and he still recognized these spiritual things. Looking left and right, he found that there was no one in this place, and the position of these spiritual flowers was very tricky. Calamity, in addition to this spiritual flower's ability to automatically block divine sense, it was not discovered by other immortals. Almost without thinking, he quickly picked the few colorful spiritual flowers, took out a jade box, and put it inside. Calming down his excited mood, he hurriedly jumped up, and while he was at it, he tidied up his somewhat messy clothes and hair. Just as he finished tidying up, he heard the celestial child who previously sent the old turtle call him. He responded and hurriedly walked over. "Is it done on your side?" "It's all done. Your harvest should be not small, right?" The other celestial child's expression was somewhat satisfied. "I didn't expect Lord Turtle Immortal to be so generous." The celestial child gently took a breath. "It's all right." Seeing him like this, the other immortal child did not ask any more questions. Whatever treasures he obtained was none of his business. It would be annoying to ask more. "Then let's go back." The immortal child nodded, still a little nervous. He was thinking about the blessing that Tangwa had given him at the end. He could not help but press his little heart. It should not be a coincidence that he had obtained such a treasure. It was most likely related to the koi deity. Moreover, he had almost tripped himself once, but every time, he would successfully escape from danger. Could this be what the coy immortal general had said, that misfortune would never bother him? At first, the celestial child didn't believe it. Later, he kept encountering all kinds of good things. Although they were small, he was lucky every time. He was very grateful to Tangwa and Yizichin. At the same time, he kept his mouth shut and didn't reveal anything. As for Tangwa and Xingheng, they were living happily in the heaven realm. System. Shameless, right? Although it's still a bit off, it's not that far off. A day in heaven was equivalent to a year in the mortal world. After Tangwa and Xingheng spent more than a month in the heaven realm, more than 30 years had passed in the mortal world. Chapter 2462. At this time, in the mortal world, Tangwa had countless more believers. The endless power of faith was about to condense into liquid. However, this power of faith could only be absorbed by her and Xingheng. Fortunately, the other immortal officials did not care about them. Even if they were given a good place, they did not think that the two had a big background. As for the immortal tablet that the celestial emperor gave them, other than the immortal child that day, no one else knew about it. Therefore, after the two moved into the immortal palace, there were only a few immortal officials who came to congratulate them. Tangwa did not care about this, and Xingheng did not care either. If guests came, they would receive them well. If not, they would live their own lives. The immortal children in the immortal palace were all enlightened by Tangwa and Xingheng from the lake in the immortal palace. They were all water spirits. After the two fishes moved in, they never came out. The celestial emperor called the immortal child and asked in a low voice. The immortal child nodded. After the two lords moved in, they did not come out. Is that so? The celestial emperor narrowed his eyes. Did they make any requests?
No.
Oh. The celestial emperor was silent for a while. If they have any requests, do it well. Yes, your majesty, I will do my best. The immortal child answered very happily. He was the immortal child who led Tangwa to the residence. In just a short month, he was lucky every day because of Tangwa's blessing. This luck left him trembling in fear. Kongyu, your cultivation has improved a lot recently. Kongyu was the immortal child. He was trembling a little, but he still said truthfully, I received the blessing of the Koi Immortal Lord, so I got some opportunities recently. It was impossible to hide this kind of thing from the Celestial Emperor. He could only tell the truth. At the same time, he took out a jade box and handed it to the Celestial Emperor. The Celestial Emperor waved his hand, a little amused. He was the Celestial Emperor. How could he snatch something from an immortal child? Since it's your opportunity, take it. If anything happens to the two fishes, go and run around. Kongyu was a little surprised. He always felt that the Celestial Emperor was a little too indulgent with the two fishes. But now his whole heart was biased, and he nodded repeatedly. You may leave. The Sky Emperor watched as Kongyu happily walked away. He stroked his beard and knocked his head as he pondered. I can't see through them. I can't see through them. However, these two foreign experts shouldn't be looking for trouble with me. I don't know who it was that provoked them. They even came to this emperor's heaven realm. The Celestial Emperor pondered for a moment before opening his eyes. Looks like it's time for me to go into seclusion. They are all old immortals of the heaven realm. They have to learn to solve the trouble they caused. The heavenly empress was watering her peony when the Celestial Emperor suddenly appeared beside her, giving her a fright. Regaining her senses, she retaliated with a backhand strike. The Celestial Emperor hurriedly dispelled the power and held her small hand. Heavenly Empress, let's go into seclusion. Seclusion? The Heavenly Empress was a little surprised. She suddenly blushed. You old pervert, did you come up with some new tricks again? It's not a new trick. This emperor has comprehended a new Dao technique, but I feel like I'm still missing something. The Celestial Emperor was all smiles as he held the Heavenly Empress' small hand tightly. He even wanted to hold it in his arms. Recently, I thought about it carefully. It must be because I didn't study it with the Heavenly Empress. That's why there are no results. Xianxi, only you can help me. The Heavenly Empress. What else could she do? Shameless old man.
Peak.
Chapter 2463. What? The Celestial Emperor and Empress went into seclusion? Why did they suddenly go into seclusion? Countless immortal officials were shocked when they heard the news. Did the Celestial Emperor and Empress comprehend a new Dao technique? Isn't that obvious? If they didn't comprehend a new Dao technique, why would they go into seclusion? In short, the Celestial Emperor and Empress' sudden seclusion really caught these immortal officials off guard. They didn't even have to go to the Grand Hall of Divine Wind to inform them. Instead, they suddenly called the immortal child to inform them. It was obvious that they had really comprehended a new Dao technique and needed to go into seclusion. Calculating the time, the Celestial Emperor and Empress had indeed not gone into seclusion for a long time. It was not strange. Before the Celestial Emperor went into seclusion, he said that if the two of you need anything, just let me know. Kongyu came to Tanggua's immortal palace and specially came to inform her about the Celestial Emperor's seclusion according to the Celestial Emperor's instructions.
Got it.
After Kongyu left, Tanggua couldn't help but laugh. Was the Celestial Emperor really going into seclusion, or was there another reason? But it didn't matter. There would be a good show soon. Without the Celestial Emperor, it would be even more fun. A few days passed in the heavens, and a few years passed in the mortal realm. Pei Jiren, who was locked up in the princess residence for the rest of her life, was nearing the end of her life. When Su Shi died in the mortal realm, he didn't directly return to the heavenly realm because he and Pei Jiren had made a contract to return to the heavenly realm together. In Pei Jiren's life, other than before she met Su Shi, she didn't have a good life. Ever since she fell out of favor, she was locked up in the princess residence and never came out. Even if she tried all kinds of methods, someone would always find her and capture her. Because of her mischief time and time again, and because of her brothers and sisters who were once trampled under her feet, now that she was down and out, how could they not deal with her? How could they give her a chance to make a comeback? Originally, she wanted to instigate her son to seize the throne, but unfortunately, she didn't have that much power. Not only did she not succeed, but she also caused her son to be stripped of his title. In the emperor's anger, she was demoted to a commoner and could never regain her royal status. And her daughter was also married off to a remote place by the emperor. Pei Jiren was angry and resentful. Every day, she would use a knife in her room. She swore that she wouldn't let them go even if she became a ghost. After a few decades, she had almost gone crazy. She used to be as arrogant and pampered as she was, but now, her brothers and sisters would make her fall into dire straits. On the day of Pei Jiren's death, she swore that she would never let go of those who had harmed her. In the end, she died. After she died, her immortal soul floated out of her body. At the same time, Su Shi appeared beside her. The two of them looked at each other, and countless memories flooded in. Su Shi's expression was complicated while Pei Jiren's face was ferocious. Their immortal souls floated uncontrollably towards the heavenly realm. When they reached the Heaven Realm Gate, the 9 Light Star official and the Military Star Lord were already waiting for them. The two of them were still standing on their own sides, and they couldn't see eye to eye with each other. Seeing that Pei Jiren and Su Shi had returned, she hurriedly ran to them. Military Star Lord patted Su Shi's shoulder and sighed. I told her to find that carp spirit to save you, but she was too late. The carp spirit had already made the leap. After saying that, he whispered, I don't care what happens to you guys in the future. It's up to you. Let's see if you can succeed. Vertex. Chapter 2464. 9 Brilliant Star Official. That old thing is really hard to deal with. Do you know that he was the one who brought that beautiful carp demon to your side? After that, he even sent a black bear demon to destroy your relationship. By the time I found out, it was already too late. With a few words, Military Star Lord shifted all his anger onto 9 Brilliance Star Official. Speaking of which, he only created a problem for the two of them. which was to make Su Shi's descendants have to be the top scholar in the literary examination. However, this problem was already unintentionally broken by 9 Brilliance star official. After that, he really didn't do anything. It was all that old thing's doing. Jiren, it's good that you're back. 9 Brilliance star official also pressed on Pei Jiren's shoulder. He was actually a bit nervous, but he looked calm on the surface. I think that Su Shi is not reliable at all. A mere carp demon can charm him. It seems that you're not that important to him. Now that you're back in the Heaven Realm, there are so many outstanding men in the Heaven Realm. Our Jiren can pick any one of them. Pei Jiren pushed the 9 Brilliance star official away and took out 3 items from her pocket. Although they were all destroyed, they still looked the same. She threw the 3 Dharma treasures at the 9 Brilliance star official. If it weren't for you, would Su Shi and I have become like that? You said that Su Shi was charmed by the carp demon. Didn't you send the carp demon over? You even sent the black bear demon to sow discord and then poison Su Shi to death. Tell me, did you ask the black bear demon to do it? 9 Brilliance star official was a bit embarrassed. I sent the carp demon to Su Shi. Wasn't that a test of his loyalty to you? As for sending the black bear demon to sow discord, it was just to see if you trust each other. Didn't you resolve the misunderstanding in the end? Then why did you let the black bear demon poison Su Shi? You obviously didn't want us to be together. If it wasn't for you, all these things wouldn't have happened. Before she died in the Heaven Realm, Pei Jiren hated Tanghua and the black bear demon the most. Now that she had recovered all her memories, she hated 9 Brilliance star official the most. Of course, she also hated the black bear demon and Tanghua. 2 mere spiritual monsters had actually caused her to be in such a miserable state. She could not take this lying down no matter what. Jiren, I didn't expect the black bear demon to kill Su Shi. I really didn't tell him. Anyway, you sent him? Su Shi and the military star lord listened to the father and daughter's quarrel and didn't look good. That's right. If the 9 Brilliance star official hadn't instructed the black bear spirit, Su Shi wouldn't have died in the mortal realm. Although death in the mortal realm would not cause Su Shi to truly die, it still caused Su Shi to lose quite a bit of his immortal energy. On top of that, the 2 of them had failed their tribulations, causing their cultivation to regress quite a bit. Pei Jiren hated the fact that Tanghua and Su Shi were fated. She also hated that she didn't save Su Shi. Otherwise, they would have succeeded in the tribulation. Su Shi was different. He hated the 9 Brilliance star official the most, followed by the black bear demon. He didn't think much about Tanghua. In fact, he felt a little guilty. Especially after he died, his consciousness was still there. He knew everything that happened in the Heaven Realm. Chapter 2465. Looking at Pei Jiren's actions, even if she destroyed Tanghua's 3,000 temples, she didn't get angry, hurt the innocent people, and didn't directly kill Pei Jiren. Later, when Pei Jiren killed the carp, Tanghua only resolved the carp's disaster and didn't do anything to Pei Jiren. When he compared the two, he unconsciously believed that Tanghua didn't do anything wrong. Tanghua definitely didn't know that he was poisoned. At that time, she was about to make a great leap. Pei Jiren was 1 step slower and didn't stop her, so she couldn't be blamed. Moreover, Tanghua once told him that she was in the middle of cultivation and was sent to the ruined temple by someone. It was obvious that she wasn't ordered by the 9 Brilliance star official, but the 9 Brilliance star official almost killed her. If he didn't get her to the ruined temple, she probably wouldn't have a mortal bond with him and would directly make a great leap in the future. You just can't bear to see me living well. You know I like Su Shi, but you're doing everything you can to stop me. Pei Jiren was furious. You're sacrificing my feelings for your personal grudge. You're too selfish. Jiren, your father really made a lot of mistakes this time. I already informed you before. After all, you know that I can't do anything directly. If I did, your father would definitely cause trouble for me. I could only ask someone else to help you, but I didn't expect it and missed it in the end. The military star official looked apologetic. I think this matter doesn't exist. I think you and she are sincere. As an elder, I won't stop you too. Pei Jiaran looked at the military star official with a much gentler expression. It's not your fault. My father went too far. The 9 brilliant star official felt a little guilty at first, but after being interrupted, he was furious. He jumped up and yelled, "You old thing, why are you trying to sow discord here? Seeing us father and daughter fall out, you're satisfied, aren't you?"
I'll make it clear today.
I'll never agree to anything between you two. Even the Celestial Emperor agreed to your tribulation. Now that you've failed, you two are not fated to be together. If it weren't for you, would we have failed? This is the result of your deliberate destruction. I don't accept this result. I want to be with whoever I want. It's none of your business. You're rebelling. I'm your father, so of course you have to listen to me. If you dare to be with that bastard, I'll kill him. The 9 brilliant star official was so angry that his eyebrows raised. When he heard that the 9 brilliant star official wanted to kill his son, he immediately jumped up. "You old thing, if you dare touch my son, I'll tear your roof off." Seeing that the two sides were about to fight, the immortal officials standing by the side could no longer watch the show and hurriedly stepped forward to stop them. If a star sovereign and an immortal official were to really fight, it would not be a good thing. In order to not affect the mortal realm, they had to expend their immortal energy to create a protective barrier around the mortal realm. The brilliance tease brilliance, the brilliance, star officials, brilliant star officials. T as half T judges judge. Pei Jiaran came out of the immortal palace angrily and bumped into Su Shi, who was also looking for the Celestial Emperor. Su Shi, let's go find the Celestial Emperor. Pei Jiaran grabbed Su Shi's arm. This is all my father's fault. I can't accept this. Chapter 2466. Anyway, I don't think the previous tribulation counts. Su Shi nodded. This time, the 9 brilliant star official went overboard. He also came to find the Celestial Emperor for justice. He and Jiaran were a loving couple in both the heavenly realm and the mortal realm. Now that his father didn't stop them, he didn't know why the 9 brilliant star official was so insistent on breaking them up. Even though Pei Jiaran was unreasonable in many ways, he did like her and wanted to be with her. This didn't change. After we find the Celestial Emperor for justice, we'll go down and kill the Black Bear's spirit who harmed us. Su Shi nodded. That Black Bear's spirit is indeed abominable. I think the one who harmed me in the end was the Black Bear's spirit who acted on his own accord. No matter what, we'll capture him and interrogate him. Anyway, he did what he did under my father's orders. They didn't disagree on how to deal with the Black Bear's spirit. Pei Jiaran suddenly thought of Tanghua and her expression changed. There's also Tanghua. I heard that she's already made the Great Leap and is probably in the immortal realm now. We'll ask around and find out where she lives. This matter has something to do with her. If she saved you in time, there wouldn't be so much trouble. This time, Su Shi hesitated. Jiaran, Gua. Tanghua was just implicated by the 9 brilliant star official. It's not her fault. Let's just forget about it. What? Pei Jiaran suddenly pushed Su Shi away, and her expression changed. You said forget about it? Su Shi. Do you still have her in your heart? Jiaran, you misunderstood. Su Shi hurriedly explained. I don't have any feelings for her. I just think that she was implicated by the 9 brilliant star official and shouldn't have been involved. When you went to find her, she didn't mean to not save me. She just didn't make it in time. So, let's just forget about it. Pei Jiaran was furious, but she was still very smart. If she made a scene now, it wouldn't be good for her situation.
Su Shi was right.
She was the one who went to look for Tanghua. She didn't manage to find her in time to save Su Shi. It was indeed unreasonable for her to look for trouble like this. If word got out, people would say that she was petty. The people of the immortal world were the same as the people of the mortal world. Even the slightest movement would cause an uproar. Pei Jiaran dispelled her previous thoughts when she thought about what others would say about her. She pursed her lips and frowned. You're right. She can't be blamed for this. It seemed that in order to deal with that carp demon, he had to think of other ways, and it had to be something that no one could find fault with. This matter should be considered at length. At this moment, Pei Jiaren thought of the old tortoise that had promised her, but never returned. She wanted to tell Su Shi, but when she thought of Su Shi's attitude just now, she swallowed her words. She did not dare to deal with Tangguo openly, but could she not teach old tortoise a lesson? Who asked him to go back on his word, and failed to fulfill his promise to her. This kind of small matter, there was no need to tell Su Shi. In the end, the two naturally did not meet. They were told by the immortal child that the heavenly emperor and empress were in seclusion, and did not have time to come out. They could only return. At this moment, Tangguo also knew that Su Shi and Pei Jiaren had returned to the heavenly realm. She also knew about the quarrel at the heavenly realm's gate. Of course, these were all told to her by the immortal child Kong Yu. Not long after, she heard the immortal palace's immortal child report that Su Shi had come.
Peak.
Chapter 2467. Invite him in. After instructing the boy, Tangguo saw that Qing Heng's expression was a little different. She leaned over and asked, "Big black fish, what are you thinking about?" Qing Heng looked at the door and said faintly, "Why did he look for Guohua as soon as he came back?" The system who was listening by the side was about to die of laughter. This guy was so obvious when he was jealous. He's a guest. He's already here to visit. Tangguo changed the topic. "Do you not want to see him?" Qing Heng was silent for a moment and said honestly, "I don't want to see him." Would he want to see a person who had betrayed Guohua and now came to see Guohua for an unknown purpose? He was trying his best to restrain himself by not killing him. "So you don't want to see him? I thought someone made you angry." Qing Heng did not understand, but he did not deny it. He was indeed a little unhappy because of Su Shi's return. He also knew that the person who schemed against Tangguo was the 9 Luminaries star official. If Guohua was not powerful, she might have been killed by their group of people long ago. Go and stop Su Shi.
Don't let him in.
Qing Heng did not expect that Tangguo would summon the boy outside the door in the next moment and instruct him to do this. Go, just don't let him in. I don't want to see him anymore. The boy was also stunned. Could it be like this? Immortal monarchs were really fickle. Yes, immortal monarch. The boy hesitated for a moment. Immortal monarch, do you want to find an excuse to refuse? I said, I don't want to see him. Do I need any other reason? Tangguo answered matter-of-factly. The boy could not hold back his expression.
Was that so?
Would that offend her too much? But seeing that Tangguo had no intention of changing her mind, he could only do as he was told. Su Shi, who had been invited in, was calming himself down because they were about to meet again. Speaking of which, they had not seen each other for decades. However, calculating the time in the heaven realm, it should have only been a few dozen days. In fact, he had mixed feelings when he came to see Tangguo. He knew what had happened before, so he felt even more sorry for her. This time, he came over to reminisce about the past and to apologize on behalf of Pei Jiaren. In the end, she was tricked by the 9 Brilliance star official. If she wasn't strong enough, the Black Bear's spirit might have taken her life when he took the 9 Brilliance star official's Dharma treasure. However, Su Shi did not expect that he would be stopped halfway by a boy. Young Master Su, please go back. Su Shi was puzzled. Did something happen?
No.
The boy looked serious on the surface, but he was speechless on the inside. However, he still said the same thing. It's like this. The Immortal Lord has decided not to see you. Su Shi subconsciously asked why. The boy held back his expression for a while before finally suppressing his strange expression. The Immortal Monarch said that she doesn't want to see you anymore. Su Shi didn't believe him. What kind of words were these? Why didn't she want to see him? Su Shi, on the other hand, was not angry. He was just wondering why she suddenly did not want to see him. In short, at this moment, a lot of information flashed through his mind. This boy would not tell lies. Once the immortal lord found out, he would definitely be punished. Therefore, she really did not want to see him now. Could it be that she was afraid of seeing him and remembering the past?
Peek.
Chapter 2468. He recalled what had happened before. She probably didn't do anything to Pei Juren because of him. Now that he was back, their fate had come to an end. Was she afraid that when she saw him, she would recall the past and be sad? Thinking of this, she didn't want to force her. Then I'll leave first today. I'll visit another day. The boy heaved a sigh of relief that she was so easily dismissed. This young master didn't look very smart. Why wasn't he angry at all when the immortal master didn't want to see him? Instead, his expression was complicated and tolerant. He remembered that the immortal master didn't care at all. He even looked a little disgusted. Whatever, he just had to send him away. Immortal master. Young master has left. The boy came back to report and happened to see Tanghua and Qingheng eating. The two of them were talking and laughing. He knew that the immortal master really didn't care about young Master Su at all. Young Master Su also said that he would visit another day.
Is that so?
Tanghua looked up and fixed her gaze on Qingheng's face. She asked with a smile, "Big black fish, do you not like She coming here to see me?" Qingheng's heart almost jumped out of his chest when he was suddenly stared at by such a focused and serious gaze. Although he wanted to lie and say that if she wanted to see him, then so be it. But he couldn't lie to himself. He really didn't want to see her, not even for a glance. But would his behavior make her angry? If Guogua wants to see him, then it's fine. What I'm asking is, do you not like him coming here to see me? Tanghua pressed Qingheng's hand. The warmth from her palm made Qingheng completely confused. He blurted out his thoughts. Yes, I don't want him to see Guogua at all. I also don't want Guogua to see him. He's an ungrateful jerk. What's the point of seeing him? And I think that he definitely didn't come here just to see you. He must have a motive. Qingheng was still a little uneasy. The children thought, why is the tall and mighty Lord Immortal General always so cowardly in front of the Lord Immortal?
Did you hear that?
The big black fish doesn't want She to see me. If he comes again in the future, reject him. The reason is that I don't want to see him. After the children responded and left, Qingheng looked at Tanghua eagerly. His eyes didn't even blink. They were especially bright. Tanghua pinched his face and sat closer to him. Big black fish, now you can give me a reason why you don't want him to see me. I've seen him. At this moment, Qingheng's heartbeat accelerated. He was completely at a loss. If you don't answer properly, I'll go see Sushi immediately. When Qingheng heard this, he immediately grabbed Tanghua's hand and held it tightly. Guogua, don't go.
I'll talk. Speak.
I'm waiting. The room was very quiet. Only the two of them were there. Although the fairy child was curious about what would happen in the house, she did not dare to pry. Qingheng pondered for a long time, and Tanghua did not urge him anymore. When he thought of She coming back to see Tanghua, what if he said something nice and lied to his Guogua again? What if he hurt her? In the end, Qingheng's expression became serious. He still did not let go of Tanghua's hand and said very seriously, Guogua, I want to always be by your side, and like you. So, don't see other men, especially heartless people like Shi.
Peek.
Chapter 2469. In my world, in my eyes, there is only room for you. Only you will properly protect you, and not bully you. If you don't like me, I won't ask for anything. I just want to like you. If you like me too, then that's the best. Of course, if you don't like me, you can try to like me. How will you know if you don't try? System, ha 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 ha. Tanghua was amused. She raised her other hand and placed it on the back of his hand. There's no need to try. I've already tried. Qingheng was stunned. He quickly asked, then do you like me a little bit?
Take a guess.
I guess a little bit. How so? Guogua didn't see She just now because of me. Then you're not stupid. I didn't raise you for nothing. You're indeed my big black fish. Qingheng, it's a little weird. Big black fish, I like you more than a little bit. Qingheng's heart was about to stop. He didn't know what to say. He just carefully held her hand and said seriously, even if Guo only likes me a little bit, I'm still very satisfied. You're so pitiful. Tangwa leaned over and kissed Qingheng's face. I can't help but feel pity for you. Qingheng, weird. But it didn't matter. It was a good thing that Guo liked him, even a little bit. He wasn't greedy. He was already very happy. Moreover, Guo seemed to like him a little more than he imagined. System. Yes, you're so pitiful. You're such a ruthless person. He put a curse on himself and became like this. He was a little curious. What kind of relationship did this guy have with the host in the past? Why was he so ruthless to himself? Ever since Qingheng found out that Tangwa liked him, he was very happy every day. When he had nothing to do, he would send servants out to find good things for Tangwa. Otherwise, he would wander around the immortal palace and redecorate the surroundings. Knowing that Tangwa liked to eat all kinds of delicacies, he would ask the servants to bring back ingredients and make them himself. He was completely enjoying himself. He didn't care that the servants would often stare in shock and have a confused look on their faces. He almost never went out and few people came to Tangwa's place. Many immortal officials had forgotten about their existence. On the other hand, Old Tortoise would occasionally come over. He could see that the relationship between the two had improved, so he would choose a convenient time to come over every time. He wouldn't stay for long to avoid provoking others. This time, Old Tortoise came over and sat for a while. As usual, he got up and said that he would leave and not disturb them any further. As he turned around, Tangwa called out to him. I see a faint shadow flickering on your forehead. I'm afraid you'll meet with misfortune. Originally, Tangwa didn't pay attention to these things. Later on, she carefully studied the immortal tablet that the Heavenly Emperor gave her to manage her fortune. It was only after studying it that she realized the true use of the Fortune Immortal Tablet. Even if she didn't use any magic power, as long as she had the Immortal Tablet, she could use her fortune on others. With this thing, she did not need to use her innate ability at all. She thought about it for a long time. She guessed that the Celestial Emperor had given her the Fortune Immortal Tablet to cover up her true innate talent. Her own ability, coupled with the fact that she cultivated the power of the stars, was actually not bound by any restrictions. And the fortune that this immortal tablet controlled was bound by the heavenly realm. The Celestial Emperor didn't want to restrict her. There could only be one purpose for giving this to her, which was to hide it from others.
The peak.
Chapter 20, 470. Now that the Celestial Emperor was in seclusion, he must have divined something. She could easily see the black shadow on Old Tortoise's forehead, thanks to her refining the Fortune Immortal Tablet. Sometimes, even powerful immortals could not see the calamity. Many calamities would appear, and the heavenly secrets would be concealed. Unless one deliberately divined, one could not see it with their eyes. Is what Immortal Monarch said true? Old Tortoise vaguely knew that Tangwa had a special talent. Moreover, ever since he met her, he had been very lucky and had become an immortal. Therefore, he still took her words seriously. Tangwa nodded. There are more and more black shadows on your forehead now. I'm afraid it's a life and death calamity, and it's not easy to avoid it. Old Tortoise's face turned pale when he heard Tangwa's words. He had only been an immortal for a few months, and now he was going to die? Just thinking about it made him feel indignant. Immortal Monarch, do you have any way to help me resolve this calamity? Old Tortoise was undoubtedly very smart. If Tangwa did not help him, she would not have told him this. So he asked this question. Tangwa directly pulled Qingheng over. Big black fish, is the black shadow on Turtle Immortal's forehead bad luck? Can you help him dispel it? Don't use the Misfortune Immortal Tablet, Tangwa said in a low voice. Otherwise, it will attract attention. The main thing was that it would alert the enemy, and that would not be fun. Qingheng looked at it for a while. then reached out and touched Old Tortoise's forehead. Wisps of black shadows were pulled out. Finally, Old Tortoise saw a black shadow in Ching Heng's palm. It was squeezed into a small black ball, and then he swallowed it, which shocked him. Tangguo also looked at him speechlessly. Ching Heng looked innocent. Sorry, Guogua, I suddenly felt that it should taste good, so I couldn't help but swallow it. It's digested now, so I can't spit it out. Old Tortoise. Is that even possible? Tangguo did not pursue the matter, and observed Old Tortoise again. She saw that there were still wisps of black shadows on his forehead, and it was still connected to his divine sense. There was no way to get it out. After Old Tortoise found out, he was still a little worried. Let me give you my blessings. You shouldn't have to worry about your life anymore. The old turtle calmed down and hurriedly bowed to express his gratitude. Turtle Immortal, you will definitely be able to turn danger into safety. Tangguo thought for a while and felt that this was more practical. If there's anything, you can come to us directly. In the end, Old Tortoise left anxiously. When he thought of the miraculous Tangguo, he calmed down a lot. He had only enjoyed this happy life for a few dozen days. He didn't want to die just like that. Therefore, on the way back, he was very careful and was in a state of alert at all times. For the sake of safety, he hadn't even gone out recently. After a few days, his new friend in the heaven realm sent a boy to invite him, so he had no choice but to go. Even so, he was fully armed. Although he looked calm, he was always on guard against the possible dangers around him. As long as the crisis was not resolved, it was impossible for him to relax. Old Ghost was guided by the boy all the way to an unfamiliar place. He cursed inwardly and turned to leave. Turtle Immortal, since you're here, why don't you sit for a while? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Old Tortoise looked towards the source of the voice and saw Pei Jiren holding a magic weapon and jumping down from the clouds. Chapter 20, 471. Turtle Immortal, congratulations, you've become a Turtle Immortal. Seeing Old Turtle's shocked and confused look, Pei Jiren sneered. You've become an immortal, but you've forgotten what you promised me. Were you immersed in the joy of becoming an immortal that you forgot about me and didn't help me inform Tangguo? Or did you find it troublesome and didn't want to inform her to come back? Or maybe you told her about this, but she didn't want to delay her trip to the heaven realm and didn't want to come back. You also didn't want to delay your trip and thought that I'm immortal and won't trouble you in the future, right? At this moment, Old Turtle finally realized who Pei Jiren was. Pei Jiren's appearance was different, but he still felt that she was a little familiar. Thinking of the rumors he heard some time ago, he understood her identity. Thinking of this, he was a little angry. You lied to me before. Sushi didn't do anything to the immortal monarch, but you said that I did, so I agreed. There was obviously no kindness. If I really succeeded in stopping the immortal monarch at that time, I would have made a big mistake and cut off the immortal monarch's opportunity. This is unforgivable. In the end, you were just selfish and didn't care about other people's opportunities. I'm really glad that I didn't have the ability to stop the immortal monarch at that time. Otherwise, you would have succeeded. Pei Jiren was a little angry when the truth of this matter was exposed. After all, you promised me that thing. You didn't do it, so you went back on your word. The old tortoise was furious. After being in the heaven realm for so many days, whether it was the immortal officials or the children, most of them were polite and courteous. Even if they were arrogant and ignored people, they still disdained to be unreasonable like Pei Jiren, at least on the surface. This was the first time he met someone as unreasonable as Pei Jiren. What do you want? Old Turtle had already guessed that his bad luck should have come from Pei Jiren. After all, he was focused on cultivation, and almost no one made enemies with him. Pei Jiren's matter was a trap. If it were someone else, and he failed to do what he promised, and the situation turned out to be true, he would feel guilty in his heart and might make some compensation. Or, when he was in the Dragon Gate, even if Tangguo didn't agree to come back, he would turn around and inform her. However, Pei Jiren had lied to him first. It was impossible for him to go back and inform her. His good intentions were used, and in the end, he got himself into trouble. This was probably the situation he was in. Pei Jiren's eyes flashed with coldness. I heard that the Celestial Emperor forgot to include you in the Book of Immortal Bestowment. So, if you suddenly die, no one will find out anything. Nobody will care about the death of a mere turtle immortal. Although the Immortal Sealing Book was used to restrict immortals, it was also a form of protection for immortals. As long as they entered the Immortal Sealing Tome and were under the Celestial Emperor's control, even if they accidentally died, they could use the Immortal Sealing Tome to be reborn in the Celestial Realm. As for immortals who weren't included in the Immortal Bestowment Scroll, once they died, they would truly die. If their soul wasn't destroyed, they would reincarnate and cultivate again to become an immortal. This old tortoise didn't do what he had promised her, so she decided to kill him and let him reincarnate to cultivate again. The old woman's skin turned cold, and her whole body tensed up. She turned around and was about to escape. Pei Jiren's speed was also very fast. In an instant, she landed on Old Tortoise's path with her sword in hand. Suddenly, the two of them fought. This place was relatively remote. Even if the two of them fought, no one would notice. Moreover, Pei Jiren had prepared in advance. Chapter 2472. Lord Immortal, Kong Yu is here. Because Tenghua and Xingheng were fish, they liked to stay in the lake when they had nothing to do. The water in the room was filled with immortal qi and the power of faith. It was very beneficial for them to cultivate in it. Basically, Xingheng transformed into his original body and landed at the bottom of the lake. Tenghua also transformed into her original body and leaned directly on his body, wagging her tail in the water. Their days were very leisurely. When the boy came in to report, Tenghua and Xingheng were at the bottom of the lake. Hearing the boy's somewhat flustered voice, the two floated up to the surface of the lake. The boy saw some golden-red fish heads on the surface of the lake, filled with immortal qi. He didn't dare to look and quickly answered, Kong Yu came with Turtle Immortal. Turtle Immortal seems to be injured, so he came in a panic. Kong Yu is a little anxious, so he asked me to report to Lord Immortal. Hearing that Old Tortoise was injured, Tenghua and Xingheng instantly jumped out of the lake. When they landed on the shore, they were a handsome couple. The woman was dressed in red, and the man was dressed in green. Seeing Old Tortoise, Tenghua found that the black line on Old Tortoise's forehead had dissipated. It seemed that the disaster had passed. Turtle Immortal, how are you? Lord Immortal, I have already fed Turtle Immortal some healing pills, but he still looks a little serious. Tenghua checked Old Tortoise's injuries and found that his turtle shell was a little cracked. It was obvious that the other party was quite ruthless. She didn't have it easy either. Fortunately, Old Tortoise was prepared and tricked her in the end. Old Tortoise's face was pale, but his life was not in danger. He really didn't expect that Pei Jiren would hate him so much that she wanted to kill him directly. If it wasn't for Tanggua's warning and Xingheng's drawing of most of his bad luck, plus the fact that he had been careful and prepared recently, he would definitely have died in Pei Jiren's hands. She was the daughter of the 9 Luminary Star official and had countless Dharma treasures in her hands. How could he be her opponent? But he had cultivated for countless years. Even if he didn't know how to cheat and deceive like humans, he had experienced life and death tribulations. In terms of survival, he still had a way. He was also prepared, so it wouldn't be that easy to take his life. At the end of the day, he was prepared. Pei Jiren underestimated her enemy and came to kill him. That was why she fell into his trap. Her? Although Tenghua had expected it, she still asked. Old Tortoise laughed and said, Pei Jiren is still holding a grudge against me for going back on my word to her. Old Tortoise has lived for so many years, but I've never seen such an unreasonable, self-righteous, and selfish person. She lied to Old Tortoise first. So, what if Old Tortoise went back on his word? Don't tell me that Old Tortoise has to help a swindler harm others? Although he had tricked Page Yaren, he was still very angry and felt that he had yet to vent his anger. Turtle Immortal, you can stay with me for a while. Tangwa pondered for a moment and felt that if Turtle Spirit went back and the 9 Brilliant Star official investigated, he would definitely not be a match for him. She thought for a moment and said, when the Celestial Emperor comes out, you should enter the Immortal Bestowment Book. The Immortal Bestowment Book wasn't without its disadvantages. She didn't enter it because she was afraid of becoming the Celestial Emperor's enemy and being restrained. Secondly, she didn't need to enter it and didn't need that kind of restraint. Old Tortoise was stunned. This was the second time he heard about the Immortal Bestowment Book. The first time was from Page Yaren. Old Tortoise thought about his situation and strength and finally nodded. Okay. Calling you. I'll have to trouble you to tell the Celestial Emperor about Old Tortoise entering the Immortal Bestowment Book. Calling you hurriedly nodded. Chapter 2473. Tangwa found out from Old Tortoise that Page Yaren was tricked by him, and her condition was even worse than his. She might not be able to recover in a short time. She sent someone to keep an eye on Old Tortoise's place. Sure enough, not long after, someone from 9 Brilliant Star official went to look for Old Tortoise and heard that he was very angry about it. Not long after, the entire Heaven Realm knew that Page Yaren was seriously injured. It was said that she returned to the Immortal Palace covered in blood. If not for 9 Brilliant Star officials' timely treatment, she might have died. After Su Shi heard about it, he hurried over. However, 9 Brilliant Star official was not willing to let him see Page Yaren and chased him away. Not long after, 9 Brilliant Star official looked for Old Tortoise all over Heaven Realm, saying that he wanted to settle the score with him. He was angry that Old Tortoise almost killed his daughter. There were even rumors in Heaven Realm that Old Tortoise was probably lecherous and wanted to take advantage of Page Yaren. Seeing how beautiful Page Yaren was, he had crooked thoughts and wanted to snatch her away. However, he did not expect Page Yaren to be so stubborn and unwilling. Old Tortoise was embarrassed and did not want this matter to spread, so he simply went all the way and wanted to harm Page Yaren. The rumors were true. Most of the people in Heaven Realm were biased towards Page Yaren. After all, she was indeed very beautiful. It was not strange that Old Tortoise had the guts of a leopard and wanted to take advantage of her. When the boy reported the matter, Old Tortoise was so angry that he vomited blood. Tangwa glanced at him. Turtle Deity, I think you shouldn't treat your injury for the time being. It shouldn't endanger your life, right? It won't. It's just that my body will hurt a little. Old Tortoise said, Turtles are tough. As long as I have one breath left, I won't die easily. All right then, make yourself more miserable. It's best if you make yourself vomit blood every time you say a word. Old Tortoise was speechless. He figured out what she meant. Was the immortal asking him to pretend to be pitiful to gain sympathy? I'll arrange the following matters and clear your name. Old Tortoise trusted Tangwa very much. If there were people he could trust in Heaven Realm, it would be the two in front of him. He could not find anyone else. Even if the people of the Heaven Realm were polite to him, not many of them really looked up to him, even if he succeeded in leaping over the Dragon Gate. Old Tortoise secretly pondered in his heart. When this matter was over, he had to cultivate properly. Whether it was in the mortal realm or the Heaven Realm, strength was the foundation of a foothold. Without strength, one would only be bullied by others. If he did not escape today, Page Yaren would have killed him. Don't say that immortals could not fight. Killing each other only referred to those with background and status. No matter where they went, little Luo would be easily manipulated by others. Before Tangwa could make a move, the 9 Luminaries Star official brought people to the Immortal Palace and asked her to hand over Old Tortoise. Tangwa and Xingheng walked out of the Immortal Palace. They saw the 9 Luminaries Star official with his men and a group of immortal officials watching. The 9 Luminaries Star official saw her and asked, Is that Old Tortoise with you? This matter has nothing to do with a little carp spirit like you. Hand him over, and I won't blame you for hiding him. That high and mighty appearance was indeed very annoying. May I know why the 9 luminary star official is looking for turtle deity? Tangwa glanced at the crowd outside indifferently. If you don't make it clear, I won't hand my friend over to you. Now that turtle deity is seriously injured and unconscious, it's better to let him recuperate. That old tortoise coveted my daughter's beauty. When he couldn't get his way, he killed her. Chapter 2474. Carp Spirit, this has nothing to do with you. Don't meddle in other people's business. Hurry up and hand him over. The 9 brilliant star official was very rude and unreasonable. He thought that the Carp Spirit who just came up had no ability at all. It was also because he was the one who moved Tangwa to another place. He didn't even know where she was. In just a few decades, could her cultivation surpass his? If that was the case, he wouldn't be alive. As for why Tangwa Qingheng was titled as an immortal general, he thought that she was the Carp Dragon Gate. The Celestial Emperor just paid a little more attention to her. After all, the Carp Dragon Gate had been opened several times before, but no water spirit had succeeded. 9 brilliant star officials said that the old tortoise had ill intentions towards Fairy Pei. This is something that the entire heaven realm knows. Would I lie to you? The 9 brilliant star official didn't feel that there was anything wrong with spreading this rumor. The old tortoise hurt his daughter. Now he was just looking for a legitimate reason to deal with him. Fortunately, the Celestial Emperor forgot to let him enter the immortal book. If he wanted to become an immortal, he would have to see if he agreed. As far as I know, Turtle Immortal wholeheartedly cultivates. It's impossible for him to do such a thing. When Tangwa said this, she realized that the surrounding immortals didn't agree with the 9 brilliant star official. They just stood aside and watched the show. She understood that these people just came to watch the show. They wouldn't help the 9 brilliant star official, nor would they help a mere old tortoise. Even if they knew that the old tortoise was wronged, they wouldn't interfere. Once they interfered, the 9 brilliant star official would definitely find trouble with them. At that time, others would watch the show. In this regard, she didn't comment much. Whether it was humans or immortals, they were all the same. You can't judge a book by its cover. You don't know the old tortoise. Who knows that he's a bad person inside? Stop talking nonsense and hand him over. The 9 brilliant star official couldn't wait. When he caught the old tortoise, he must break his shell piece by piece and then throw him down from the heaven realm. The beast who hurt his daughter shouldn't think about living well. Even so, I believe that the Turtle Immortal isn't like that. There's a misunderstanding. You little carp spirit, are you protecting him? Yes, 9-star official. I want to protect him. What are you going to do about it? Tangwa's lips curled up a little, and there was a smile on her face. She didn't seem to be afraid at all, which was strange. Only the system knew that its great host had wanted to fight for a long time. Now the opportunity had come. The only reason the host didn't take the initiative to start a conflict was because of the Celestial Emperor. The Celestial Darch had given her a chance, so she couldn't take the initiative to make trouble for the Celestial Darch, right? Now that the 9 luminary star official wanted to bully her, it wasn't too much for her to retaliate, right? System. Not at all, it's only right. The 9 luminaries star official didn't disappoint Tangwa and made his move. With a palm strike, the door of the Immortal Palace was smashed into pieces. Then, he led his men to look for Old Tortoise. Big black fish, he smashed our door.
Get him.
Qingheng couldn't wait any longer. When Tangwa finished speaking, he and Tangwa jumped in front of the 9 luminaries star official at the same time. Overconfidence flashed in the eyes of the 9 luminaries star official. He planned to dissolve the power of the two at will, but he didn't expect that the power was so strong that it directly blasted him far away. Under the surprised gazes of the immortal officials, Tangwa and Qingheng directly rushed in the direction of the 9 luminaries star official. They hurriedly chased after them, only to see smoke and dust in front of them. There were countless sounds of power hitting. They didn't dare to get too close because they had already felt that these three powers were very powerful. Did they really just come from the heavenly realm? The Celestial Emperor's eyes are as sharp as torches. I finally understand why these two were assigned here, and were even given the title of Immortal General. The 9 Luminary Star official is probably going to suffer this time. Serves him right. Isn't he usually very powerful? I really want to see him being bullied. About half an hour later, the battle had stopped. The immortal officials only saw 2 figures walking back from the smoke and dust. They could vaguely see 2 figures walking over. After walking closer, they realized that these 2 figures were Tanggua and Qingheng. When they saw Qingheng carrying the 9 Luminary Star official who had been beaten black and blue, they all subconsciously took a step back. Weren't these 2 fishes a bit cruel? Kongyu also saw it and swallowed. The Celestial Emperor was right. These 2 fishes must do whatever the Celestial Emperor ordered. Chapter 2475. 9 Brilliant Star Official, can we sit down and talk now? The 9 Brilliance Star Official couldn't move at all. He was shocked and aggrieved. He never thought that these 2 fishes were so powerful. 9 Brilliant Star Official, you're not speaking. That means you're willing to sit down and talk, right? Tanggua continued. At this moment, there were chairs placed outside the palace. The 9 Brilliance Star Official sat across from her. There was even a cup of tea in front of him. He looked very polite to him. In reality, only the 9 Brilliant Star Official himself knew that he couldn't speak or move now. The immortal officials finally woke up from the fact that the 9 Brilliant Star Official was taken care of by the 2 newcomers. They looked at the 9 Brilliant Star Official with pity and mockery. They saw that the 9 Brilliant Star Official didn't react when Tanggua spoke to him. They were a bit surprised at first. After all, with the 9 Brilliant Star Official's temper, he wouldn't compromise under any circumstances. This time, he came here with the goal of killing the old tortoise. Now that he was sitting there obediently without moving, they felt that something was wrong. Soon, the immortals realized where the problem was. The 9 Brilliant Star Official didn't violently attack or speak, but his eyes were very fierce. If it weren't for the fact that his face was so swollen that it couldn't be seen, he would definitely show an angry expression. The immortals chuckled. So it wasn't that the 9 Brilliant Star Official silently agreed to Tanggua's words, but that he couldn't refute it at all. This was interesting. Even if he couldn't look up to observe the immortals' expressions, the 9 Brilliant Star Official could feel countless mocking gazes on him. He was about to die from anger. I didn't want to fight the 9 Brilliant Star Official, but you didn't listen to my explanation. Tangua's lips curled up. There was a smile in her eyes. The 9 Brilliant Star Official's irritable look earlier was a bit abnormal. While the immortals were puzzled, she continued, I once lived in the lower realm for many years and happened to meet someone as abnormal and irritable as the 9 Brilliant Star Official.
So?
The immortals were more and more curious. Was there really a reason for the 9 Brilliant Star Official's irritable temper? It wasn't because of his personality, but because he was sick. After a while, I heard that he was originally a gentle and kind person. The reason why he became so irritable, Tanggua paused for a moment and continued, was because he was bitten by a mad dog and got mad dog disease. At first, he was manic and restless, urinating everywhere at home. Later, he even wanted to bite everyone he saw. The immortals. 9 Luminary Star Official, have you ever been bitten by a mad dog? Have you had such symptoms before? Tangua's face was full of sympathy. If you had such a disease, you wouldn't care about your reputation and refuse to treat it. A minor illness will drag on a major illness. In the future, you might really bite and pee on anyone you see. The immortals felt that if the 9 Brilliant Star Official could move now, he would definitely jump up and slap her to death. Oh, no, the 9 Luminary Star Official was no match for her. He would only die from anger. The 9 Brilliant Star Official was indeed furious. He felt his chest tighten as a mouthful of blood gushed out from his swollen throat. Unfortunately, he couldn't control his state now. Blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The immortals cheered. This guy was usually bad-tempered. He would find a reason to bully others crazily. Now he finally got his retribution. The person who restrained him, no, the fish had appeared. Alright, let's talk about serious matters. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.